What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily podcast powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Got a lot to talk about. Still not closing the door on Louisville. We're going to talk about just some of the factors that led to that loss and that concern you going forward as we look to Stanford. Get a little sneak peek at Stanford. Talk about a lot more with Peter Aree, some recruiting stuff as well. First, I want to talk about some folks who you don't have to worry about letting go of the rope. They're always on point, ready to rock and roll. And that is Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. Pete, hop in here.
D, good morning.
Morning. How we doing?
Fantastic, man. Fantastic. Just watched a lot of football this weekend, and ready to get back on the horse here as we look forward to Stanford. And we'll talk more about that game here in a minute. But as you said, still a lot to kind of unpack here from Louisville and that loss, man. I think for me, just taking an extra 24 hours here to think about it, I think it really has made me take a step back and assess like I said yesterday Saturday when I hopped on with you, like, who has Miami beaten at this point? Like, have we kind of overassessed who they've played and kind of made judgments based on what we thought certain teams were, and that's made me take a step back here and kind of reassess where we are right now at the season. I think a lot of us have had to do the same thing. I don't think you're as extreme as me in that sense, but a lot of stuff to look at today.
See, my concerns are different. I'm not worried at all about who Miami's played. I mean, Notre Dame is one of the best teams in the country. I would say top 5 in terms of their form right now. And it's not like they were playing soft against us or were particularly banged up. They had Jeremiah Love. Carr was a question mark, but he played well. So to me, Notre Dame is one of the better wins anyone's had in the country. Florida, FSU, USF is a tricky slate given the timing of it. I think what I'm more concerned about is just how is this team going to play the rest of the year, right? Not so much are they for real. I think when they're playing clean, which against Notre Dame, they played a lot cleaner than they did against Louisville in terms of both turnovers and penalties, they can beat anybody. I think they can push any front that they need to deal with. So we saw Florida, which was supposed
Louisville.
Right, which they didn't play well, right? So I think that was a tough performance, and it showed some things that could creep up here in this stretch of schedule where Miami has typically faltered, and that concerns me. But it's not like I'm like, oh, is this team like a fraud propped up on bad teams? Notre Dame's an elite win, and all the other games had their own ways of being tricky, right? USF's playing well. So there's ways that
but
those
if
games
Miami played Notre Dame right now, I think we could argue Notre Dame would be favored on a neutral site, seeing what we've seen now and knowing that it's not the same CJ Carr as it was game one.
CJ Carr was their best player in the game one.
But they didn't let him start throwing the ball downfield into the fourth quarter.
No doubt.
Yes, give Miami defense credit for what they did, but I'm just saying, D, like, this is not the same. I think probably the best win by far was USF, the way that Miami played in that one.
Oh, they
really want to talk about it, the performance they had, but that's not the same Notre Dame team as it is right now.
I think that's overstated. Again, they're healthy. Jeremiah Love played. They had all their guys. It was the first game of the season. Their defense was fired up. I do think they're getting better, but again, if you play them on a neutral field, they still have to block Ruben Bain and Akeem Messidor. Now those guys got to get healthy. I think
at this point of the season now, which they look like they're gassed right now. So
that's a topic. That's a topic we'll talk about here in a second. I think really when you look at the Louisville game, the bigger issue is that they were getting the ball out in record time. Yeah, I mean, if you look at some of the forget the eye test, which to me showed them still being effective in terms of beating their guys, the PFF, and if you want to use any of those, it was very clear that the story was the defensive line was beating their guys just like they normally do. The problem was that Miller Moss and Braun had our number. I mean, they were locked in. The better coaches in this game were on Louisville's side. In terms of the plan and the way they executed, and they got rid of the ball fast. So I think that would still be a disadvantage for Notre Dame, having to block those two guys, some of the other things. But look, they're a great team. Point is that if Miami plays clean like they did against Notre Dame, no penalties. I mean, not no penalties, but minimal penalties. Just pull up that box score and no turnovers through the air. then I think they're going to have a great.
It wasn't completely clean. You had the field goal botch as well early in the game.
Right, but yeah, when those things, it's football, those things happen, but 0 turnovers, and then just look at the penalties, 6 penalties, right? Whereas in this game against Louisville, you had 9 penalties, most of them incredibly poorly timed, drive-killing penalties that really took away our ability to, I think, control the game with the running game because our down and distance was so screwed up. There are other factors with the running game, which I'm sure we'll get to, but that was a huge one. And then, of course, 4 turnovers versus 0. And I'm not, Louisville's defense is better than I gave it credit for. I think when I go back and why was I so confident against Louisville, the offensive line was so bad on tape. That was a big factor. But also, I think the defense, I didn't give them enough credit because they weren't very impressive when I saw them last year. They weren't particularly impressive to me physically on tape. I thought it was more about the other teams, but then seeing them in person, fast, athletic, made a lot of great plays. All that said, I think Notre Dame's got a better defense, and they're also opportunistic and get turnovers, and we had 0 turnovers against them. So I think a lot of that is we played great against Notre Dame, played clean, didn't play incredible, but we played clean and good. Whereas against Louisville, we made every mistake possible, and the team was good enough on the other side to take that win.
Yeah, I guess the question becomes, do we have faith that they can put a clean game together since they haven't necessarily done it since then?
The thing that concerns me big time is, we saw, and then we're going to get to Carson Beck because I know Mo Hussein's on it big. We saw the TVD experience. We talked about this on the Sunday show, but we saw the TVD experience. He had plenty of time. I think Beck had plenty of time in this game, aside from that third INT on 4th down when McCoy got beat right off the snap. I think that was really McCoy's fault for that interception. Other than that, he did have a lot of time. The pass protection was there, and we were still seeing picks. We were seeing picks on situations where Louisville knew we were passing or playing the pass, and all of that, Pete, is going to bring back memories of TVD in 2023 when he had excellent protection, and teams basically just dared him to pass and be patient and got in his head, and he became a turnover machine after his 4 INT performance against Georgia Tech, which was around this time that was on October 7th. So, around this time of the calendar. That to me is the worst case scenario. You see Carson Beck get in his head. He's going to get a lot of outside adversity just in terms of people kind of doubting him. You hear some of the Canes fans here, which we'll get to right now. If he lets that get to him and then becomes someone who's turnover prone and goes into a shell like we saw with TVD, this season can go off the rails. If he responds starting this week against Stanford, then SMU, a defense that hasn't played very well this year, you could see him get back going. I think he's someone who's got a lot more banked credibility than TVD. He's won a lot more games, 29-4 as a starter. Would love to get that to 30-4 this week. And then somebody who has a much better relationship with his teammates that I've seen than TVD. So I think go in that direction, but it could happen.
And I think he's got a little bit more fire in his belly than TVD. And really, not that TVD had a lot on the line. Obviously, was fighting for at that point. Some people had him as a he was mocked highly. As I said at the time, he was never, from the scouts I was talking to, actually considered a first round pick at that time. Was really like a 3rd rounder. But Beck with the external noise, and I think, unfortunately, as I said on Saturday, the body language stuff was not great, right? So some of the stuff, whether you want to say it was Lofton's fault, he ran the wrong route there, whether he didn't see certain things, right? And you got to give Louisville's defense credit, but I think he can control what the body language stuff is, and I think that rubs off on the teammates. So it's very cliche, but he's got to control that stuff, I think.
Yeah, no, it's cliche for a reason. It's true, and I think I would bet you the coaches are telling him the same thing. Nashville, Morning D. Sun came up. Canes a top 10 team. Every game a playoff game from now on. Let's ride. Yeah, that's the biggest difference, I think, of the season is that all these random ACC games, instead of just kind of like worrying about hey, is this player going to have a big game? Is this going to happen? Now it's like, man, are we going to win? Must-win kind of scenario. So that's why I made him that post on CanesInSight that the biggest thing that's changed is my anxiety because it's a one-game season every week, which they say it is every week, but there was a little bit of cushion, and that cushion is gone. Mo Hussein says, where's his arm talent for Beck? You kept telling us about all summer. He has a noodle arm, no horsepower in his throws, no legs, no zip. He has to check down. I mean, I've seen him make some pretty strong throws. I don't think that was the issue as much as, maybe throwing late on some of his downfield throws. But really, a lot of it was Louisville making spectacular plays and then him, to me, making bad decisions more so than just arm issues. But I don't know what you're seeing there, Pete.
Yeah, I mean, the arm doesn't look. I think he has. It's not that his delivery is like elongated, but it's kind of slower. Like it doesn't just fly out the way that he kind of like he doesn't flick it that way. It kind of comes from the trunk and the base of his body. It feels like so. That's what from what I see as a very elementary quarterback understander. Like I think it's part of how big he is in his throwing motion. I just think he's a step. He was a step slow on some of these reads the other night. Tried to force obviously balls into coverage, and really, I would say the thing that's been more disappointing than anything with him for me has been I thought he was more. I mean, we saw how he was taking off and running. He did not look as athletic as I've seen. I saw on Georgia tape, and I've seen, and heard really because he just didn't. He didn't look like he was moving with much juice. Now, I will say, and I said this, I don't know if I said it before, but he ran pretty physically in that USF game. And I think they kind of had to scale him back a bit because he was taking some shots in that game that could be avoided. So I don't know if that was in the back of his mind also, D.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Because I have heard that it's something they've had to make sure that he understands how valuable he is for the situation because we've said it before. We cannot have this thing devolve into what we saw with TVD because there's not much behind them.
Yeah, and I think on the runs, and I have to go back and watch, but I think a lot of those runs were like on 3rd and 10, like 3rd and 9 and stuff like that. Like that to me is the fundamental problem with this Louisville game is the offense that we want to play with Carson Beck, with our running backs, that was very successful against in all these big games, all these rivalry games. And look, they weren't 50-point offensive performances, but the offense did what they needed to do to win those ball games. So that was the point of those. The offense is there to win the game, and they won those games. It was not like these were 3-0 type wins. I think the thing with our offense is that it is all about, and I said this a few times, it sounds like a broken record, but it just has to be said. This offense is about controlling down and distance. That is the point of the offense. And what that means is when it's 2nd and 10, 2nd and 11, let's say, 2nd and 12, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 9, you're not seeing the offense at where it wants to be. I mean, really no offense is designed for that, but Miami in particularly, that is not where Miami wants to be. They want to avoid losses. That's why the running game, which drives people crazy, is so conservative. That is why they do the things they do, is to set up those easy 3rd down conversions, 4th down conversions, which they do pretty well, especially when it gets short. They just run it right through. Louisville's offense isn't that much different, quite frankly. They do it through the passing game more so than the power running game, but they're also a lot of, paper cuts, controlling down and distance, which they did to us all day before Chris Bell then breaks a big one. But when you have so many penalties and you struggle to run the ball like we did, you get to those 2nd and 10s, 2nd and 12s, 3rd and 10s. And then I think Beck is really very limited in that way because he's not the kind of runner that's going to run for a 10-yard gain. Like Cam Ward could do that sometimes. The running quarterbacks can do that pretty regularly. Beck, I think his legs come into play when it's like 3rd and 4, right? And he just has to kind of run through it if he's uncovered, as more so than getting 10 yards. I think once we get to that 7 or 8 yard mark, they close in on him, and we've seen that happen a few times in this last game.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that would be something that caught me a bit off guard, man. It just didn't seem like he had the same juice there. But like I said, could be a mental thing as well.
And look, my personal view of Beck, it's one of those things. It's never so high as it looks, never so low as it looks. With that said, we've seen collapses of quarterbacks. Ja'Cory Harris, TVD, those are two that stand out because they were really kind of interception-driven collapses. Beck right now, 4 INT, 0 touchdowns. Obviously, his stats don't look as good with the 11 touchdowns and the 7 picks. He is still averaging 8.5 yards an attempt, which is not bad. I think over the next few weeks, he wants to get that closer to 9, which would be pretty good. And certainly limit the turnovers. So Stanford, we know what the story is here. I'm just pulling up Stanford's game logs. You can see some of these some of these defensive performances. Did a nice job against Florida State, which had been a good offense before Miami kind of beat them up a little bit. But, this is not a good Stanford team. Virginia put 48 points on them. SMU put 34 points on them. BYU 27 points on them. Hawaii 23 points. Their defense actually has not been the worst part of the team. They've been pretty tough relative to their offense. So we'll see. It's not going to be like just a lay down, but man, they are extremely beat up, and they're playing a Miami team that you hope is motivated. Just looking at the rankings, 81st in scoring defense, which of course is not great, but their offense, where they're out right now, offense 107th, 19 points a game. So this is if you're going to pick on what part of the Stanford team is most vulnerable, it is going to be their defense, their pass defense in particular, which is a Stanford problem. They just don't recruit the greatest defensive backs historically. 106th in yards per attempt against. It's early, so I don't want to read too much into those stats, but I think that's just pretty much a consistent Stanford problem, just not being able to recruit those kind of defensive backs. Last year, they were 121st in the nation in yards per attempt against. So I think this is a situation where Carson Beck can really get going and improve, pad those stats a little bit, get the confidence back, and do his thing.
D, I want to get into something that will, I believe, kind of lead us into JoJo Trader talk, which obviously has been a big discussion and will continue to be that way, I believe, until we hear something different. But there's a lot of talk about the coordinators, right? Corey Heatherman, the defense, as people in the comments are saying, probably did enough to win, but they got behind the 8 ball, and there was some stuff that I think that he would probably like to have back as a coordinator. Shannon Dawson, we talked about him, a good amount here the last few days. There's a lot of people who, I'm not on the board. I think he's not where the issue lies right now, but I do think there are some stuff that you could do to kind of combat what some of the issues are right now. But more than the coordinators, what I'm interested in, just hearing early on the last few days and understanding the nature of what NIL is today in this era, D. There's going to be a lot on the position coaches here. There's going to be a lot of the position coaches to make sure that their groups stay focused. And what do I mean by that? When you're undefeated and guys aren't getting the reps that they want, it's very easy to say, look, we're undefeated. We can't change too much right now. These guys are doing what they're doing. You got to understand, in every room, there are guys who want to play more and want to get more snaps. This is where division happens. This is where divisiveness happens. It's going to be very important that these position coaches keep their guys locked in and have them understand, look, we got a whole season ahead of us. There's still lots of opportunities ahead here, D. That is a concern of mine. And I understand people may say, well, what does that say about the culture? Any program in America deals with this right now, D. Any program in America has to deal with this. I'm not saying it's going to go left, but they got to keep this thing tight, as Coach as Mario Cristobal always says. That's a legit concern of mine right now.
Yeah, no question. I mean, look, you're absolutely right. And I think when there's adversity, these are all the things that you see. Because people that aren't playing as much now are saying, not only am I not playing, but this didn't happen or that didn't happen. So it just compounds everything. Of course, there's outside noise. We already talked about it affects the quarterback. There's outside noise. Really, unless your name is Malachi Toney, you're probably getting some sort of negativity from the outside. If you're listening, and social media makes it a lot easier to listen. Actually, Cristobal just had his interview with WQAM, and not much interesting there. But he's talking about we have to enhance, just to your point about the coordinator, says we need to enhance the way we run the ball. It falls all on us. It's not what we want. It's not been our MO, our identity to not run the ball in an effective manner like we did Friday. We have to do a better job, which I think, I do think in terms of the coordinators, you will see not a wholesale change of the running game. We can get into the running game more, but I think that'll change quite a bit. Not a wholesale change, but when you don't perform, that's what happens. But I think, Pete, overall, you're absolutely right. When you lose in any program, there are certain elements that become a problem you got to get a hold of. And players wanting to play more, their families, all that stuff, it only compounds in a way that's harder to do when the team that's on the field is winning every game.
Yeah, and now like we said, when you're undefeated, it's kind of easy as the position coach to justify certain, because remember, the position coaches are the ones who choose the rotations, guys. This is obviously, if you're the quarterback, Carson Beck, you have a lot of say in which receivers are playing. Let's remember that. But Shannon Dawson has said in press conferences, he lets the coaches run their rotations unless it's a drive where he says, hey, I need the starters in here. That's as much as he's going to say. So Kevin Beard, he's got a room right now that you have two guys who are performing at a high level consistently, I would say, right? You're looking for someone else to step up. Keelan Marion, I think people have gone on him. I don't think he's like the reason why this offense has kind of been stagnant at times here the last few weeks. So is he a top flight number 1 or 2 option? No, but I think in the role that he's playing right now, he's solid. Not to say that other guys can't step up. You have Ray, you have JoJo, you have Josh Moore, who I would love to see getting more reps. But there's going to be chatter, and I think in these situations, you go one way or another. If you're a player, you continue showing up every day and doing what you got to do, and potentially earn yourself more reps, which obviously something continues to hold him back there, JoJo. Or, he's played in how many games now? D3?
Yep.
He's got one more game until a red shirt is available. I'm not counting that out as a possibility. I'm just being real here and trying to assess. Yep. Now, how does that affect the room? How does that affect the energy levels of the room? Do they just say, if something like that does happen? And we're doing some speculating, but these are the situations that I think these coaches have to do a really good job of keeping this thing tight.
No, I agree. And to me, a lot of it is just going to be competition, right? Let's find out who the guys are that are going to perform and you don't have to worry about, right? Because the truth is, having done this for a while, obviously people have coached the game know this way better than I have, but the guys that you always kind of have to talk about and in terms of like, hey, how can we get this person to do X, Y, Z? More often than not, that doesn't result the way you want. Doesn't mean it's over here, but it's going to, at some point, we got to find who is going to make the plays and you don't have to worry about it. Like a Malachi Tony, not going to be at that level, but somebody that's going to go out there and they're going to make it clear that they are that guy. And I think really what I'd like to see, particularly against a Stanford that can't defend the pass as well, let's see a lot of guys out there. Can we see, Juan Manuel saying Josh Moore, 7 snaps. Let's see Dalen Upshaw. Let's see some of these guys. Who is performing in practice, which I don't know.
We're talking about JoJo. Let's go see Dalen Upshaw. That's right.
Let's see whoever is performing in practice at this time. Let's see them in the game and see how they do. Right. Look, and practice is not always going to predict the game. Lofton and Trader, people get on me all the time for Lofton. I already see it in the comments because he's not playing very well as his Trader. Look, in spring, those guys were making a lot of plays in practice. There was no guarantee it was going to carry over. Did not carry over to fall. Injuries had something to do with that, but even to now, it is not clicked. So just performing well in practice, particularly back in spring, which was several months ago or last year, isn't a guarantee it's going to carry over to the season. However, in my experience, when people are playing well in practice, like at this time of year, put them in the game, and usually that translates. So I'm not out there. I will ask some questions this week, see who's really stepping up. I know Upshot at different times has done his thing. That's just one name. Josh Moore, we've seen him already play on the field. Let's get somebody who hasn't not had an opportunity, give them a look in a game like Stanford and see what they do with it, because we absolutely need to find somebody, and it's more likely it's not going to be someone who you constantly have to just kind of push and hope for. Most likely it's going to be someone that you play and then you say, wow, we can't keep this guy off the field.
I think it'll be Tony Johnson. That's my guess right now.
Another good one, and someone, again, I don't think you have to worry about.
And yeah, I just like comment here from 220 Greenwich. He says Marion's not the guy. They like him because he's older and a bit more physical as a blocker, but not really showing up. Also made a bad play to take out. I agree. That wasn't a good decision, but we're not saying it needs to be the guy is Malachi Tony and CJ Daniels. Those are the top two. You're looking for another wrinkle, another guy to and I think we saw Josh Moore do that in flashes. We've seen And Tony Johnson, has had 3 catches for 84 yards or whatever. But Marion hasn't done anything, I don't think, to say like he deserves less snaps, D. Like, I continue to go back to that. Mix more guys in, obviously, but like, I don't know. Am I seeing it completely wrong with Marion, D?
No, not at all. Not at all.
He's not like he's dropping balls out there.
He's been solid. I think the question is, because we expect him to be spectacular, not solid, right? Whereas he's making huge plays on its reverse or whatever, maybe a bomb, and then not being as consistent a receiver. He's been solid. He just hasn't been spectacular yet. So it's like kind of the opposite of what we thought. Mo Hussein saying,
go ahead. I was going to say, Tony Johnson, come on, bro. Well, he had 50 catches as Cincinnati was having a pretty darn good year right now. So I don't know. I'd like to see him in the mix, but
yeah, no, I agree with you. Cincinnati's a ranked team, and he led them in touchdowns last year. So this guy can play ball, and he's one. Again, you don't have to worry about him so much. Really, the thing with him is opportunities. He just hasn't had that many opportunities. He's caught the ball when he's been thrown at, and he has tape producing. So I'm with you. I don't think that's a bad thought at all. That's actually, in fact, exactly what we're talking about. He could be a guy that you get a chance, and then you're surprised. But yeah, it's been frustrating when you think about the spring and coming into the season. The thought process, and this is not my thought process only. This is anyone who's around the program watching these practices is, Lofton and Trader are really going to be guys that carry our offense, and we just have not been able to get them going. Jordan Lyons too. Those 3 had a spring, and different reasons, but we have not been able to get those guys going.
Hassan says, I think Beard only plays the players he likes. That tends to be how it goes, man. They play the players they trust, man. I think that's how it goes, man. Yes.
But I mean, look, guys, Pete, and you know this too. What have we said about Malachi Tony since the second he stepped on campus? Was it how fast he is, which we now have learning he's faster than we even thought, how big he is, or is it this guy prepares like an absolute maniac? He's incredibly consistent in everything he does, and you don't have to worry about him. I think I said preseason that, I'd throw a newborn baby at Malachi, not worry. Then you look at CJ Daniels. What have we said about him? The way he works off the field, the leadership, the focus. As long as he's healthy, he's going to be good. You've always pounded the table for CJ Daniels. He's healthy. He's playing great. So that is the blueprint for succeeding at that wide receiver position in Miami. It's the guys that you don't have to worry about what they're doing preparation-wise, the Allen Hearns, the Xavier Restrepos, the Leonard Hankersons, the KJ Osbornes, even the Mike Harleys, the guys that have success. Ideally, it's an Andre Johnson, who is a freak of nature that also has that attitude. That player, unfortunately, signed with Ohio State a couple years ago. So, receiver, search continues for that third explosive guy. And I would like to see more guys get an opportunity, particularly the guys who are pushing every day in the building in Hecht.
Manny says Dawson's the one who needs to put these players in position to succeed. Where's the tight end production as well? I got this comment on the post-game show, and what I kind of said, D, and I know obviously we understand your Lofton beliefs, but like, have these tight ends, you had an Elijah Royal last year who they used, and he went second round in the draft, and was a different animal than what you have right now. If you're an offensive coordinator, are you saying we need to throw the ball to the tight ends more to fix what's going on with the offense right now? I don't think so. The other part of it is Shannon Dawson said about 2-3 weeks ago that there was a game, for example, because he was asked about the tight ends, that tight ends were open 5 different times, that they were the primary target and they didn't get the ball. So we don't know what happens within the course of the play a lot of the times. And yeah, I don't know that he has the horses there right now.
Yeah.
And I think Bauman can give you more than he's shown. I think Lofton's got to get in shape. I don't think that we can say anything else different than that right now, because he's just not the same player as we've seen.
Yeah, that's what it is. There's no doubt about that. And the physicality hasn't been there. Blocking, which we saw. I mean, even if you look at his film last year as a freshman, he was knocking guys. That he's not blocked that way this year for a variety of reasons, and that's a problem. One of the things I wanted us to do in the portal was get a real tight end that will allow Lofton to move around and be more of a running back, because that's where I always kind of thought he was, like a fullback, the super fullback. That's where he was most dangerous. Bauman, we need to see just more production out of him. Some of that, again, I'm not watching the L22, so I don't know how open he is, but you'd love to see him get going. And to me, I would love to see a Luka Gilbert get more reps.
Yes,
you can get Luka Gilbert
100%.
and Bauman at the same time.
100%.
Now Lofton becomes more of a running back, which is where I think he really is. He's getting too many snaps at tight end, especially when he's not playing well and moving well, or blocking well and making mental mistakes on top of it. So to me, Luka Gilbert, who's played sparingly, like on goal line type stuff, let's get him going, maybe against Stanford, and see if he can start eating into these reps. Because then either Lofton has to shape up, or maybe he does shape up and you could use him in different ways, which in my opinion takes more advantage of his skill set than just being a 6'1" tight end. He's really always, to me, been a running back that just happens to be able to catch passes when he's in shape and moving well and locked in, which unfortunately is not what we're seeing on film.
Darius Darden says, to this point in the season, who's one guy that Miami was in contact with in the portal that didn't come but wish you did? Fernando Mendoza. Next question.
I would say Eric Singleton. Eric Singleton, who went to Auburn and did not have the opportunity to play with Beck, because Beck was not committed to us at the time. There was no quarterback. He went to Auburn. Auburn had their quarterback, but clearly they didn't, because they have no quarterback now. Their passing offense is non-existent. He's someone that I think if he came to this offense would have given us that speed threat that we needed. And I think Beck would have been able to get him the rock. But the Mendoza one, to your point, Pete, I mean, man, he looked pretty good last week against Michigan State. I know it's not a good opponent, but those were like handoffs. He might go number one overall. If he can keep consistent, he might be the number one overall pick.
That one will hurt. D.
We got to find those old shows and just get like a little medley of some of the comments when we brought up Mendoza. People were quite upset. it was as angry as I've ever seen our fan base.
Could have had him. Mo Hussein has been asking this question, D, asking if Beck can win us a game when teams stop the run. I'm of the belief that he can, but we haven't seen it yet this year. So,
yeah. Well, no, I disagree. FSU, they played the run. We did not run the ball very well. They were taking the run game out, and he bombed it away. So I think that's what I thought was going to happen against Louisville, quite frankly. Louisville just played way better than FSU did, was way better coach, and we played worse. But I thought basically the blueprint for Louisville and FSU, really all the ACC games was going to be the same, where teams sell out against the run and Beck is able to tear them up. But Beck, even with protection, was not able to do that. And I think that's not just his fault. That's offensive coordinator's fault, running game's fault for not giving us any kind of production there. The penalties, particularly, and guys not getting open. It's a team deal. But yes, I think he can and has in the past. This is obviously a comment we're getting a lot here, as far as Andrew says, we need more outside zone stretch runs, use the speed, one cut and go. I think that could be something that you see coming out of here. But that's, obviously we love to live between the tackles. That's been our bread and butter for a while. And Mirabel's had a lot of success with that going to Oregon. But at the same time, just because you've had success in the past doesn't mean you can't tweak things. The production the last 2 weeks in the running game has been unacceptable, and Cristobal basically said as much with Joe Rose. Steve Smith saying favoritism is a hell of a drug. I don't know where we've been playing favorites. I mean, the guys that deserve to play have played. I guess I know one that will get a lot of attention is like Brashard Smith, not playing as much because he's having success in the pros, but he's having success as a running back. He's not
but my stance has been on that one. They could have gotten that guy the ball, D. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, look,
figure out a way to get him the ball.
We should have had him a running back. I mean, truthfully, it's not like our running back depth at that time was so loaded that he couldn't play.
They had to bring in Luscious Stanley. Was that the year after? Maybe
I think, no, it's the year after. Well, when we did have him at that time, but yes, it could have been done earlier. I think they were trying to get Chris Johnson to be that guy, and he just didn't do it. Although now we have to see him in a couple of weeks, and that's going to be interesting. But yeah, he's playing a lot on Sundays. So. Yeah, it's the search continues for that next playmaker. It really needs to happen here soon, because we're getting to that point. But P, I want to talk about something you've talked about here, which is the defensive line depth. Which I look, I've never pushed back on you. My thing is just kind of like everybody's got this problem. You just cross your fingers a little bit. But certainly one thing that is controllable here, Pete, and you've harped on this, so I want to kick it to you, is Bane and Messidor, you understand why they're playing a lot of snaps. They're great. Blunt and Lightfoot are healthy, right? So our health is good on the defensive line. My concern with the defensive line depth is health, just because everybody, I think, has that problem. But here maybe seems to me, and based on our discussions offline, it might be more of an issue about utilization than just injury or something that you can't control.
I mean, D, I'll say this because you were the one who brought this story up, but against FSU, and I know there was some factors to it from the play before, but like, for example, Bane was told to come off the field for Blunt, refused to come off the field, played through it, made the play. I think there's somewhat of a pattern with that. With guys want to be out there, I understand. But when you're playing 70 plus snaps a game, that is not sustainable whatsoever. And yeah, you're not 3 deep right now on that D line, but you've got enough to be able to throw certain guys situationally to where, hey, let this guy get a breather too. And I don't know that this is something that the coaches aren't trying to fix. At a certain point, guys have to step up and say, all right, I'm going to take a step back for a couple plays and let the young fella go out there. It is an issue, D. It is an issue, and we saw it last game. I understand they were getting the ball out quick, but they looked gassed at the end of that game.
They did. I mean, the Messidor's hurt, right? So, and that thankfully not like, catastrophically hurt, but I mean, banged up. And when he played, he was ineffective a lot of the time. And it was 100% due to injury, not any effort level or preparation, I don't think, or anything like that. So,
Machiavelli asking, is Malik Bryant trying to redshirt? Without speculating on a situation, guys, we said it earlier in the show. If a guy hasn't played that many games this year, who knows what happens, because there's a situation where guys try to preserve eligibility. So I'm not speculating there. I'm just saying we haven't seen him, there has to be a reason, and he's not on the injury report. So
David Eisenberg asking who's 35. That's Herbert Scroggins, who did play in this game
and will continue to. He's going to be, I think, we've been all over that one, D. He's that guy who's going to step up and get those reps now, I think.
And by the way, one of those guys, I've never heard someone say, man, I hope Herbert Scroggins does the right thing this week. I've never heard that. So in my experience, those are the guys that tend to play. And I've seen the comment, and we dealt with this. We've seen this kind of conversation before. Hassan saying, Beard, our running back coach, don't play talented players. We should play trader. Coaches show favorites. Every single coach in America is going to play the guys they can trust and the guys that are doing the right things consistently to play. I mean, that's just kind of how it goes. If they really, really have to play a talented player that's not doing the right things or that's not performing in practice or whatever it is, if they have to because they don't have any other choice, they'll do so. 99% of the time, that's a sign of you're cooked at that point. The two guys that are playing a receiver, on top of being probably the 2 hardest workers, are the guys that deserve to play. And they deserve, quite frankly, to get all the targets right now. Someone has to take those targets from them because they have earned all those targets. That's all. I mean, I don't know what else to say. The coaches want to win too. As far as playing favorites, their favorites are the guys they can trust and that perform consistently. But there's a reason. Go ahead.
And you need more from. I mean, you need more from a Justin Scott, who we talked about last week with Steve Kim. Like, we talk a lot about JoJo as a highly rated recruit who needs to, step up and play a bigger role. And I think Justin Scott, you could say the same thing, D.
Yeah. Well, and I think defensive tackle is one position that I'm just happy it's healthy. I think it's a pretty solid spot. Even the running game where it got going with Isaac Brown, it's not like Louisville was pushing around our DTs. A lot of that was just great play calling by Brom, great execution. Isaac Brown's got a lot of speed, and then poor tackling, I thought, by our back seven. Guys that have been good tacklers all season, coming out of that bye week just weren't as ready to rock, which it's not blaming the schedule and more blaming, staff and players I say blaming. I mean, it's the responsibility of the staff and players for not being ready to deal with that situation. Other teams have to deal with it this year too. But I think that is what happened. That just early on, the tackling wasn't where it needed to be from those guys coming out of that
worst tackling game in Mario. Yeah, his tenure. So
and it was early. It was early was when they really stacked up. So I think that's a big one. It's not like Louisville is pushing around our DTs. I think our DTs, to me, have been the most pleasant surprise of the season as far as how they stopped the run. You look at Jeremiah Love. I mean, watching Notre Dame now and seeing how dynamic those two backs are, the best defense, the best offensive backfield in the country. I mean, I'm impressed that we stopped them so badly. And then you look at, Ba, your boy, having a really, really big game. So our D tackles have stopped some really good backs. I think in this one, it was a lot of just bad tackling from the back seven coming out the bye week bye. And then Braum was, every time when we lined up 3rd and 10 and we kind of got into our NASCAR package or try to get Ruben Baden one-on-one and create these matchups, Brown ran right at the soft spot and there was no one there. It was just great play calling by Braum and great execution by them.
Mohammed Hussein says, does Beck make any player better? I would argue that Malachi Toney and CJ Daniels are liking getting the ball from him.
Yeah, they love him. And they're boys. So, I mean, it's kind of how it is, but someone else needs to fill that role. And it's going to be someone who makes his life easy. I mean, yeah, he makes players better, but at the same time, guys need to make his life easy. Those guys make his life easy, and they get the ball. That's just kind of the way it usually goes. Let's see. Rocco says, we seem so slow. I mean, it's one of those things where when you're playing bad, you look slow. When you're playing well, good, you look faster. We looked faster last week, and we were bombing it away against FSU or 2 weeks ago. I don't think we are the fastest team on offense in the country for sure. I think
Louisville was faster than us.
Yeah,
offensively.
I would agree with that.
Which is gross to think about, especially considering one of those guys is from down here.
Yeah, no, they are. They are. I mean, they're probably one of the fastest teams in the country if you break it down, really, because they have a speed back, and then they have Bell, who we talked about. He's the closest thing to Jeremiah Smith is not Jeremiah Smith right now. And then Lacey's, more of like a speed type receiver. So yeah, I would agree with that. But they're faster than a lot of teams. I mean, they're faster than any team we've played, and we've played some good teams as far as their skill.
Yeah, no, I think that's going to be something that we continue to see them needing to upgrade, though, D. And here's the real issue. If we're talking about speed, right? Like we've talked a lot about Xavier Lucas, OJ Frederick, their ability to run. They didn't trust it on Friday night because they were playing off and letting them get beat underneath. A lot of they had some man beaters as well.
Yeah, that was the first one was man coverage. And then if you watch the replay, the first Bell touchdown, so it was a crosser. Frederick was chasing him. Obviously, a very hard play to make in man coverage. You got to really book it, especially against a guy like Bell. And then he got hit, Frederick. Got rubbed. So it was basically wide open. And then he caught it and he ran through our secondary. So it wasn't that. My big thing on rewatch, among other things, was like, I don't think Frederick played very bad. I thought Frederick and Bill had a nice battle. It was really the secondary as a whole trying to tackle this guy, which was the problem because he made us look real bad once he caught the ball, whether it was zone coverage or on that crosser.
Guys, if you're just joining the show now, and we're getting a lot of Beck questions. So we talked about this pretty at length in the beginning of the show. So if you rewind back, you'll see what you want probably about Carson Beck.
Let's see what happened here. Yeah, I mean, I think there's some truth to this here, which is, let's see here. Angel says Dawson wanted to play Louisville like FSU when he realized we couldn't run the ball down the middle. We got to start trying to run outside the box. I think he did. I think probably did think we could play Louisville like FSU. I think obviously the passing game was not as tight and locked in as it was against FSU. The decision making wasn't as good. I would say also, I thought we'd push around Louisville more just based on what happened last year. If you watch that game last year, remember that was a game where Martinez completely ran over Louisville. Fletcher was running him over. I think we ran for like 220 yards in that game. So I thought it'd be look more like that. Just forget all the stuff Cam Ward did in that game, but just from like a man-on-man running back offensive line standpoint. But Louisville played tougher this game. They were locked in from the beginning. confident on defense, and they stepped up and they stopped the run. I agree that I don't think Dawson thought that was going to happen the way it did, or Mirabal thought it was going to happen the way it did. Probably because last year we just ran all day on them.
I disagree with this comment here from who was it? Someone said, Tommy Cruz, appreciate support as always. He said, we made Bell look better than what he is. It's what he's done in the ACC this season. And we said it before the game, he's going to be probably the first or second receiver taken this year. So I think that's what he is. We probably could have done something more to slow it down. But I think that's who he is.
Yeah. He's awesome. I mean, it's amazing that how is this guy ranked so low is what I want to figure out. We did a whole show on it for Group Chat Sports, which we'll do in a second. Here at the end of the show, we'll bring on Clay Fink and talk national college football like we do. But man, how did this guy who's 6'2", 220 coming out of high school, how is he a 3-star player? It's amazing to me. 200-meter dash. I mean, it shows you sometimes that if one of these physical freak guys has the right attitude, you could really develop him, because that's what this guy was. Clearly, he's developed and improved. I don't think he was always this kind of wide receiver, right, in terms of overall game. But man, he's a talented dude. 22, 200 at 220 pounds, and clearly he plays even faster than he ran on the track.
So, should we look ahead to Stanford here a little bit, D?
Let's talk recruiting, because you had that you brought it up, and I think it's a good topic. Hasn't happened yet, but if you could pull up that tweet with the crystal ball, 2027 Miami Hurricanes quarterback recruiting is going to be interesting, because I thought Miami was really, really locked in on Trent Seaborn. This is the quarterback originally from Hawaii, now in Birmingham, Alabama, plays for Thompson High School, number 14 quarterback in the country on 247, number 18 quarterback in the country on the composite. Smaller guy, very productive, just good natural passer, 6'1", 200. Kind of reminds me of Dylan Gabriel, another Hawaiian, like a right-handed version of him. Miami really wanted him and has recruited him hard. He visited twice, including for the USF game, which was a great performance. Good visit, but it looks like he is trending towards Alabama. Alabama passing the ball at a very high level, very good situation for a quarterback. And you see Ty Simpson's development, the way they like to throw the ball with DeBoer. It's a different Alabama team, much more passing-oriented than running-oriented. And Seaborn's there in Alabama, so you always knew that'd be a threat. Miami thought they had a great shot here, but it looks like that one is trending away from him. 287 quarterbacks tend to stick unless something weird happens, like a coach gets fired or something like that. So this is one that I do put stock in, and would be unfortunate for the Canes because they really, really wanted Trent Seaborn. I know we've talked about Elijah Haven, number 1 quarterback in the country, getting more attention from the Miami Hurricanes. There'll be others that they go after. But yeah, this would be certainly a disappointment for the Canes, because they've had this guy on campus twice, and they really want to land him.
Yeah, I'm kind of split on it, D, because I remember we were dissecting this one at Duffy's a few weeks ago, and I kind of jokingly was like, I don't really have much interest in it. I didn't see the tools, right? You're comparing him to a Dylan Gabriel, obviously in the league now, right? And I think if we had a gun to our head right now, we would take a Dylan Gabriel, a quarterback for Miami for a couple years. But I also was very surprised when this news came out, because from what I had heard, and I said on the show last week, I was like, I think Seaborn could be popping to Miami soon, because from what I had heard, the push for Elijah Haven, of course, if they can actually make a legit run at this guy and get the number 1 QB in the country, it would be a huge get. But from what I had heard, it was probably more of a move to scare Seaborn into saying, maybe I should pull the trigger soon. So this is a miss. This is a miss because of what you said, that they wanted him. Now, whether it's a miss, what he turns into, I don't know. I think Miami's blueprint is going to be the transfer portal moving forward. So am I saying, man, what a terrible loss for Miami? No, I'm not. But at the same time, it's a guy that they wanted. So,
yeah, no doubt about it. I see it the same way. And this is a productive player. Met him. Wasn't so small that you're like, wow. But I mean, obviously not a big player, but really, good attitude, and has been extremely, extremely productive since his 8th grade year. My personal view, and I am, certainly no quarterback expert. I've never played or coached that position at any
level. We definitely aren't after what we were saying in the preseason.
About what? Which part?
About our guy, man.
I think our quarterbacks, our quarterback prognostication hasn't been that bad when UM's concerned lately, but certainly with this, my view is my personal view. I like portal players taking most of your quarterback budget. They've already gotten their reps. They've already gotten their experience. They've already taken their lumps. You can see how they fit your system because they're there. You have just so much more information on the player, and you could still get guys that have untapped upside. For me, my whole focus when you ask about quarterbacks isn't really on any high school guy. It's on a guy like Lenore Sellers, right, who seems to be playing himself out of the first round and at the same time playing himself out of South Carolina. The coach might lead to Virginia Tech. The offensive coordinator is getting fired. Seems like a lot of weird stuff going on there at South Carolina. He's really struggling with the loss of Dowell Loggins, who's now the head coach at Appalachian State. So I obviously, people know I focus more on the portal side. When it comes to high school, the way I personally like to do it, and I'm just a guy with a podcast, is I would shoot high on tools. I would get a multi-sport kid or like a running quarterback that has a good arm, good size, good attitude, like the intangible stuff is there. Maybe they're not the most mechanically sound passer, maybe they're not the most polished passer, but the tools, you say, man, if this guy clicks and develops, he could be to play in the NFL because of the size, the arm strength, the athleticism. That's what I would rather do, is bet big on guys like that, even if they're not polished. And then they're not as expensive because they are unpolished. They're not the elite guys. That's like Josh Allen, Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Mahomes, go down the line. Those guys were all kind of fitting that profile of guys that were toolsy, under-recruited high school players that, they were not what they are now as passers. They developed as passers. That's what I would focus on, as opposed to, Dawson, what he seems to like for his air raid system is he's the opposite. He likes guys that are proven high school passers and maybe lack the prototype tools or the multi-sport background. A Luke Nichols, not the tallest guy in the world, not the most powerful arm, but certainly a very accomplished high school quarterback. More athletic than people think, but not someone that I would say is like a super athlete. But he fits that mold. Darion Coleman.
Oh, no, D, you're walking back, man. You had some Jalen Hurts Tebow comparisons for him last year.
That's mischaracterized. But no, he's more athletic than people think. But I mean, he's not like a freak athlete of any kind. Darion Coleman, another guy that can run if it's there, but really more of just like your productive high school passer. Trent Seaborn, I think, fits in the same mold. So that's, to me, more what Dawson likes from what I could see. He did have Judd Anderson, who fits much more into what I'm describing. Obviously, that one doesn't look like it's going to pan out either, but seems like what he really focuses on are, the accuracy, that high school production, just kind of those pure passers that maybe aren't the most toolsy guys from a size athleticism standpoint. Oh, here we go. Look at this. Nick Isaac saying, Rivals just posted an article saying that Bama's now trending for Haven.
Well, and then, the other thing that becomes a question, D, is looking at 27, and we've heard this a lot, Neiman Lawrence, he's been, there's a lot of talk about him being a reclassification option, but how's his season going? Is he a guy that you would say is still slated to be like a top 10 QB, even if he reclasses?
I mean, I want to go see him. Have you seen him? Have you seen anything?
I haven't seen him in person. No.
There you go. Look, a lot now trending. Elijah Haven.
Now these games that I heard about are making sense, D, because obviously they're both Bama wants both of these guys. Maybe they did the Trent Seaborn thing so they could land Elijah Haven. I'm telling you, that's what I heard last week. Why? Like, that makes more sense than anything. If they have a chance for Haven or Seaborn, I'm guessing they want Haven. So yeah, that's kind of how I'm seeing it now. Maybe it's all smokescreen and Seaborn is going to stay committed here. And if that's the case, then I'll give you your chance now to take back everything you just said about him.
What did I say? I compared him to Dylan Gabriel. Isn't Dylan Gabriel one of the most prolific quarterbacks in college history and a third-round pick? I'm just saying in general, the way I want to be consistent in what I say in terms of my philosophy of how I think. And my philosophy is just based on what's happened. It's not based on any kind of specific insight I have into quarterbacks is, bet big on tools in high school, use the portal. That's not how this is. But if you're looking for what Dawson's looking for, which is a polished high school passer, Seaborn's been productive since he was in 8th grade and is extremely prolific. And you watch the highlights. I mean, this guy can throw. He's a very talented passer. That's why, again, the Dylan Gabriel, right-handed Dylan Gabriel thing is where I think he fits in. But we'll see. I think you're exactly right, Pete. I think Alabama's doing the same exact thing.
Dude, I'm telling you, because I heard this from Miami side. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. That makes more sense. That makes more sense completely now that we know that. But
yeah, it's interesting. It's funny that came up. Yeah, I don't know.
I'll tell you what, though, D. When either one of these guys visit campus, you know they'll be on that Lomello's meat. Check out lomellos.com for fresh Wagyu beef delivered to your door. I know my boy Joel Warren was on the grill this weekend. Hopefully the steaks and the beautiful marbling of these steaks changed your feeling on Friday night there. Again, Lomello's Meat Market. You see all the Wagyu options here. Prime also available. Promo code CIS10 for 10% off your order. And then if you're here locally in Miami, you got the storefront there, 9810 South Dixie Highway.
Absolutely. You might be loading up on steak, trying to get stronger for your weekend games. But if you're injured, you can't play. So if you're an athlete, active person, just want to play on the weekends, you probably know how hard it is to sit on the injured list with pain or injury. Maybe even try to hack your own rehab. But if compromising your movement or performance is not an option, call the experts at the University of Miami Sports Medicine Institute. Whether it's elite competition with Miami Hurricanes athletics or just everyday movement, the University of Miami Sports Medicine Institute is the trusted choice for those who demand excellence. Set an appointment today at uhealthsports.com.
Mohammed asking if you get the discount in person. Yes, if you give them the discount code, they will give that to you. Just like I know the Miami Hurricane team store does the same thing.
Yeah, just if you're ever in these places in person, just say CanesInSight. They should be able to get you taken care of on the promo code. Do you have any insight on this? I've been trying to figure this out. It's like a Rubik's Cube for me. It's like, who should we be rooting for?
Honestly, I know, because the way I look at it is like, if you win out, you're going to be I think you're in the playoff as an 11-1 team, regardless of what happens. Doubt. So I really don't care. I really don't I don't care. Well, I'd rather them almost not play the ACC championship, to tell you the truth. That gives you the built. You're going to get the built-in bye almost. That a lot of schools are going to have to play a conference championship, but
yeah, but then you could have a bye in the playoff if you are the ACC champion 11-1. So I think there is ACC championship, you want to win it just for kind of saying you've won it. And also, to me, I think the bye, that's why you want to win it. But you're not stressing over like maybe you stressed about it in the past, because you get in the playoffs if you go 11-1. So it's really about, the coaches will tell you it's going 1-0, right? You got to beat Stanford, which we'll get to here in a second. But a lot of it is if you go 11-1, games where you'll be favored the rest of the way, which again has been a problem for us in the past, it'll be pretty impressive.
Mo, we got Mo Hossein back, man. He says, "Love the show. Pack the Rock Saturday night." It's been an uncharacteristic negative day for our boy Mo. So we got him back on the positive side here. Appreciate the support.
Some interesting articles coming out. So I want to show you something here, because this is coming out, which is a lot of talk about parity in college football and the SEC all over. Oh, whoa. Hold on. We got breaking news, Pete.
Norvell out?
Norvell in.
Wow.
Norvell in. In a statement, FSU AD Michael Alford says the school is fully committed to Mike Norvell this season, and a comprehensive assessment of the program will conclude at season's end. The 3-4 Seminoles, 2-10 last season, have lost 4 straight and 9 consecutive ACC games. Let's read the full statement here. Florida State football benefits from unmatched passion and support from the entire FSU family, and the commitment to our football program is unwavering. We rightfully have high expectations in everything we do to represent Florida State in the manner that built our reputation as one of college football's best programs, cultivating an extraordinary group of supporters nationally and globally. We embrace those expectations while also sharing the deep disappointment when results on the field are short of that standard. As we continue to move forward this season, our comprehensive assessment of the football program will be completed at season's end. Meanwhile, we are fully committed to helping I didn't do that on purpose. Coach Norvell and the 2025 Seminoles strongly rebound in the coming weeks. They really don't want to pay that buyout.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad that it looks like James Franklin will be, out of the picture there for now, because I would expect him to be hired by the time they make their final decision on Norvell. I'm concerned about what's going on in Gainesville, D. If you were on the Discord, you saw I dropped that news earlier this week, and I think it's going to be Lane, man. I think it's going to be Lane as their coach. So this FSU one is an interesting situation, because honestly, I know people are saying they don't have the money for it now. I'm gonna disagree with that. I'm going to say that if they really wanted to figure it out, they could. I don't think they have their replacement yet. I don't think they have their guy yet, D. I think that's more so what it comes down to.
Yeah, they definitely don't. There's going to be so much movement. This is going to be a crazy little off season here. Again, subscribe to Group Chat Sports, which we're going to be going on with Clay Fink in about 15 minutes, where we shift from Canes football more towards national. We cover the portal, we cover recruiting, we cover basically everything going on in the world of college football, which includes coaching changes. And just looking at it, you got LSU against Texas A&M on Saturday. If LSU loses that game, and they got some tough ones coming up besides that one, but if LSU loses that game, you could see Kelly on the road to being fired.
Former Canes coach as the interim over there, Blake Baker.
I think that's a very, very, very real possibility. Their defense has not been lights out. It's been good, but I think the expectations were maybe even higher than what it is, but it's been fine. I think that would be he would be the interim. But yeah, I mean, look at LSU. So you got 2 losses. Then you got Texas A&M and Alabama back-to-back weeks. Then you finish with Oklahoma.
I think this is right, too, from Josh Gross on FSU. He says, I think it's because they don't trust anyone else to be the interim head coach, especially don't trust Gus or Tony. I think there's a lot more thought, D, being put into who the interim is right now with the way that the portal structure is. And guys are going to be, you have a guy like Billy Gonzalez who gets hired at Florida, who's been at Florida for, he's been at Florida other times. He's part of their, history there, so to speak. And he's probably not going to, he may not be on staff next year, but he's probably not going to do anything to screw over the program for the next year. And what Kirk is saying here, I think this is part of the equation. If you keep Norvell, even though, look, the class, I don't know how many pieces we'd be looking at and saying, would love to have them here at Miami, D, but I do think that this is kind of a way to hold it together as long as possible. And then, again, I don't think they have their guy lined up ready to go right now. So it's harder to kind of do some of the back channeling if you have an interim that you don't trust and you kind of want the ship to be right. I think Tony White, his name's been talked about in some jobs, UCLA job. I don't know what that interest is looking like now. It doesn't look like he's going to be in the mix for that one anymore. But between that and the obviously Gus Malzahn, his name has been talked about at Arkansas. I don't think that's going to happen either. But he will be probably somewhere else next year. So I think that probably factored into it also.
Yeah, if I'm FSU, to me, the no-brainer is you get James Franklin. Now, James Franklin has a duty to mitigate that buyout, meaning he has to look for a job. He can't just sit back and collect the buyout money like some other coaches can. But what I don't know is how much money does he need to accept to meet his mitigation threshold while at the same time still getting paid what Penn State owes him. Reason I say that is because if I'm FSU, and I truly hope this is not what happens. So I'm saying this with the hope that this is not what they do and they screw it up like they screw up everything, is if you can get Franklin at the minimum number that you need to hit to fulfill his duty to Penn State while at the same time he's getting paid by Penn State, then you're getting a cheap coach from FSU's standpoint who's already buying out Norvell for a ton of money. It's kind of like a weird situation where both FSU and Penn State are paying a ton of money.
And then you can throw more funds into the NIL, even though they're still going to be broke. But that's essentially what Franklin would probably be looking at it as.
That's the best way, I think. Or just being able to pay him, period. You just need the money just to even get rid of Norvell, right? So that's one way that maybe it can make sense. I hope that's what does not happen, because that'd be smart hire by FSU. But right now, like you said, they're gonna be behind in the sweepstakes because Norvell's going to be their head coach. So that is a terrible sign if you're an FSU fan. Just shows they don't have money and that they're not as serious as some other programs as far as trying to get a head start. There's going to be a lot of competition because FSU is going to need a coach, most likely. They need a coach anyways, because if they have their current coach, they don't have a coach. UF's going to need a coach. Penn State's going to need a coach. Auburn looks like they're going to need a coach. LSU, I am watching extremely closely. I would not be surprised if LSU needs a coach. So between Penn State, Florida, Auburn, LSU, Florida State, is FSU the 5th best job on that list right now, given their financials?
Mm-hmm.
So you're really getting the 5th choice.
I do. So wait, say it again. Penn State, LSU, FSU, Florida,
Auburn.
And Auburn. I mean, there will probably be an argument made by some coaches that the path is easier at Florida State. And if he's getting paid, relatively the same as he would be for one of those programs, that Florida State might be a better option, D. That's the only thing I will say with that. That's something. I think there are some coaches out there that, yes, that has to be taken into account. But if everyone's spending all this money in the SEC, does it really matter? Like if you go to, Auburn, we expect to spend money, but they're not going to be spending more than Texas A&M. I don't think. I don't. Where do they lie in the totem pole? Really, you go to an ACC. Yeah, you may have money issues at Florida State, but you're still going to be spending more than 75% of the conference.
Yeah, the thing interesting about the SEC, and maybe this is something we'll talk more in group chat sports as we shift here. We're kind of gradually shifting, right, from Canes to more national talk, but that's just the way these things go. I think college football is so interesting. As much as I hate the 12-team playoff, I think the timing of it is perfect because it's like an unmatched era of parity, not because of the playoff, but because of NIL. So it actually fits the times, even though I personally dislike it. The SEC has the lowest average margin of victory ever between these teams. It is very, very even in the SEC. I couldn't tell you who the best team in the SEC is. You say Alabama's playing the best, maybe had the best quarterback, but they can't run, can't really stop the run. They're vulnerable.
Missouri would be undefeated right now if they were right there toe to toe with Bama.
No doubt. Right? They probably should have won that game. I thought they were the better team.
Auburn probably should have beaten Georgia a couple of weeks ago.
No doubt. And they had a close one too against Oklahoma, I believe. Auburn's really all their losses have been somewhat close. Oklahoma's in the mix, but are they a dominant team? No. Georgia's cannot stop anybody on defense, so they're certainly a vulnerable team. Although they're winning, they're good, but they're not what Georgia's been in the past, which is just insurmountable. Vanderbilt just beat LSU, and no one even blinked an eye. LSU can beat you. Florida can beat you. Texas can beat you. We even talked about Texas A&M, which is the number one team. So the SEC is even as can be. So, yes, it's competitive, but it's not like you have Alabama and Georgia just gatekeeping everything and you can't go over those teams. I'd rather have an SEC where everybody's even than an SEC where two teams are so dominant that you just cannot get over that hump, if that makes sense.
Coach Drinkwitz, he's another one, man. I think he'd be phenomenal at Florida. That would be an interesting one because I think he's got a good gig at Missouri. They've got more money than people think. But again, where do you stack in the totem pole of the SEC? But I don't know that that's too it's probably a better job, but you have a little bit less resistance at Missouri than you do at UFD.
Yeah, there's a lot to like about and their NIL is good. They just took the number one pass rusher from Georgia and Damon Wilson. We talk about that all the time, and people say, "Why do you always talk about that?" Because I think that to me, of every move in the history of NIL, I think that is the one that is the most telling about this new era of NIL. That Georgia lost their number one pass rusher to Missouri, Georgia, and now Georgia can't rush the passer. And Missouri can. So that to me is, if you ever want just a snapshot of the parity in the SEC, that to me is the biggest one, that biggest move. And that was Missouri taking the player. And they've gotten other players too. And they've gotten guys out of high school like Luther Burden. So yeah, I'm with you, Pete. I think Missouri's a pretty good job where they're at right now, with a lot less pressure. And I mean, what's Missouri's record right now? Any reason why they can't win the SEC?
5-1.
Yeah, like, I mean, let me just pull up Missouri's schedule as we come. So Missouri right now, game day is going to be at Vanderbilt in Nashville this week. So that's the marquee game. You got Vanderbilt, which is a top 10 team. Then you got Texas A&M at home, Mississippi State and Arkansas, which are tough kind of teams that can beat you. And then you got Oklahoma sandwiched in there at Oklahoma. Missouri, to me, they can win the SEC and certainly make a case as a playoff team if they win some of these top 10 games. Let's say they beat Vanderbilt and beat one of Texas A&M and Oklahoma. I mean, at that point, they would have had basically 2 losses to top teams, and they would have beaten Auburn, a good, and then some other top 10 teams, depending which one they do. So, yeah, I like Missouri, man. I like the way they're built. I like what they have going on. I think that'd be a home run hire for UF, but I'm not sure there's a huge difference between where Florida is right now and where Missouri is right now in this modern day SEC.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a complete rebuild of Florida. You have a good thing going at Missouri. You also, how these coaches think he's maybe he's deep down saying, I don't know that I'm going to get much better than I'm doing right here in Missouri. This is as good as I'm going to get it to. These coaches have very, different perspectives on things than maybe the outside. And maybe he says, look, I'm doing great right now, but I can completely reset my clock here by going to Florida. You know how it is in the SEC. Drops a couple games here, doesn't have a good off season. You go into next year and he trips up and he's on the hot seat now. So you go to Florida, you reset that button. It's that's how these coaches think, man. It's pretty wild.
And dollars and cents, huge. I mean, if Missouri doesn't want to pay to play and Florida's offering more money, that would be different. But if I'm Missouri, I'm spending all the money I can spend on Drinkwitz. You have to at that point. Ed Milan saying, per booster source, if he's trying to go for Stoops, that would be poorly received, to say.
Yeah, poorly received by their fans, but I think that'd be a good hire, all things considered.
He's kind of old, I think that's
a concern for me. That
10 years ago would have been good, but yeah, I don't know if now is the best. Have you seen this article, Pete, from Chris Hummer? I think you actually might have sent it to me about FSU not respecting and poking jokes.
It, right? Yeah,
I retweeted that.
I'm not gonna. I don't know what's going on in terms of that stuff. Like we just see what we see, so I don't know what's going on there. I don't think that we can probably guess they have too much excitement in there right now that Norvell was retained. But I mean, you got a half the season left. If you're them, it could get ugly there.
Yeah, Clark leaving at Vanderbilt, where he's an alum. That's another one. Dillingham we've mentioned as guys that could go. If I'm FSU, and again, I'm not trying to advise them because I want them to screw this up again. But James Franklin will be the one that makes the most sense. I mean, excuse me. If you look at a team like Iowa State, Matt Campbell is going to lose a lot of players. He's going to lose his quarterback. And there's Josh Gross saying things. UF goes after Matt Campbell. FSU could go after him too. I think that'd be probably a smart move.
It's an interesting one because he's had NFL come after him in the past as well. So, like, what makes UF that job that he says, I'm going to take the leap, right?
Yeah. And by the way, what if Stanford gets a good coach? Stanford got Andrew Luck. They're raising a ton of money. I'm sure that's a program that you got to pay the coach, I think, because it's like a coach-driven program more so than like an NIL program. But if you get a good coach who's going to be able to get players that buy into a system because they're smart kids, Stanford caliber kids. Matt Campbell. Matt Campbell at Stanford could probably do some damage. I mean, Stanford has a higher ceiling than Iowa State. We saw with Andrew Luck and what he did as a player when Jim Harbaugh and David Shaw did for a while. I mean, I watched Christian McCaffrey yesterday.
Different
era, but you could get a niche where you're getting all the smart guys. And if they're spending money, which we're seeing that they are kind of serious about it, that's the best athletic department in the country over all sports, right? So it's a little different to me in that way than in Iowa State if they've decided that they are serious about football. By the way, if you're serious about playing games or not serious and you just like to play games, on your phone, bored, in the doctor's office, whatever, school, work. KashKick, KashKick, and the Play It Forward campaign, the rare triple win. First win, you download the app, 4.5 plus average rating on the App Store, over 1.5 million downloads. Download the app. You were able to have all your games consolidated, aggregated, all together. Puzzles, RPGs, sports games, action games, really whatever you like to do, just coloring. I mean, there's a game for every kind of person, multiple games for every kind of person. You get that all aggregated on your phone. As you play these games, kill the time, you are earning extra money on the side from advertisers. You see it right there. An incredible program where you're earning extra money just to play video games. All legit. This is a top 4 lifestyle app in the country over Pinterest. Is all completely legit. Connect with Google, Facebook, PayPal, whatever it is. And then you're earning extra money on the side. And the last win, because it is the Play It Forward campaign, the advertisers will donate a matching donation to the American Cancer Society, which, of course, a disease has affected everybody and a cause that everybody cares about. Look, let's say you're playing Scrabble. Look at that. You earn 54. We donate 54 to the American Cancer Society. So you get $54, and so does the American Cancer Society, and all you do is play Scrabble. It's that simple. KashKick, KashKick. Download the app today. And then also, Pete, before we get out of here and switch to, not get out of here, we're just getting started. But before we switch to a fully national approach with Group Chat Sports, remember, like and subscribe to Group Chat Sports. Want to talk about the Miami Hurricane team store? Yes, I know you're down. I know everybody's upset about the game. It was a tough one, but you're still going to be rocking Miami gear. You never stopped. There's weather that you need new clothes for. You're going to go to the Miami Hurricane team store that is right across the street from the University of Miami at the Thesis Hotel, or on MiamiHTS.com. All kinds of gear. Use promo code INSIGHT20, or you just go to the store and just say, hey, we're going to use the CanesInSight code. They'll have you taken care of. Great events, signings, all that. I'm pulling up the account now, but all kinds of stuff going on at the Miami Hurricane team store, MiamiHTS.com. All right. Here we go.
Yep.
Rocco. 24/7, 365 college football, baby. That's what it is. That's what's going on. And for that, we got to bring in, there we go. Let's get the background switched. So it's like changing our outfit here as we get ready for the next. There we go. Ready for Group Chat Sports. And we talk Group Chat Sports. We bring in the man himself, the Fink. How we doing?
I was doing well until about 20 minutes ago when I received the alert as I was driving back from my first class. I think Michael Alford, who I'm a Florida State's athletic director, for those unfamiliar, just released a statement that they're committed to supporting Coach Norvell throughout the 2025 season and will complete a comprehensive assessment of his job status at the end of the season. I'm a big Michael Alford guy. I understand the anger with the fan base that he extended Mike after the 23 season when Alabama was interested. What are you supposed to do at that time? That's all you could do at that time. And I think that he couldn't have predicted this fall off, but by not making the move now, I mean, what are we doing? This is not a serious football approach if you are not making a change after these 4 straight losses, after what's happened over the last 2 seasons. I mean, this is just incredibly unserious. And I thought all of the talk about Alford needing to be fired was kind of ridiculous, but I think this is a fireable offense, to be honest. And I don't want to call for his job, but I guess I am.
Clay, the initial reaction from fans in the comments when we were just talking about it on Canes Insight a little while ago was, this has to be a sign that they don't have the money to make the firing right now. I also speculated, with the portal stuff, I don't know how much of it is, are they trying to keep the roster together, even though I don't know if that's a counterintuitive thing at this point. So where do you stand on the financials of it? What have you heard? I mean, do you think that could be one of the things at play here?
Yeah, I think that's probably the main thing. But ultimately, it's not that they don't have the money. It's that they are not willing to allocate the money towards it at this time because they have limited resources. And that's not serious. they've committed money in so many other places around this university and around their campus. Yeah, they're opening up brand new football only facility today, and I can guarantee you who's going to be the first coach to step foot in there. And it's not who I would have expected if you asked me yesterday, because I thought he would probably be gone by the time they walked into that facility. But apparently that's not the case. And I think also the portal thing is a good point. But yeah, I mean, maybe it might not even matter, you know.
I also said maybe they don't have their guy kind of lined up behind the scenes yet. Yeah. I think Florida has probably been working. You know, if we saw Florida make their move yesterday officially, but Florida, I know, has been working diligently behind the scenes. So part of it is, hey, we might have. We do have the money to get rid of him right here, right now, but who are we going to pay? Do we have the money to go get the guy that we think could change things here? So I think all of this is factored in. I mean, but Clay, I mean, I think you've voiced it early on here in the show, but what's the vibe of Florida State's fan base right now?
I mean, it might be worse than last year, I think, just because last year there was a bit more of an understanding. You're coming fresh off of that contract extension. No context needed. I think people know what I'm talking
Clay,
about.
This was sent to me by a friend of mine. I won't say his name, but he is a major sport play-by-play man. And he said, the Fink has spoken. Send me this one word tweet here.
It's bad, man. I cannot believe it. The Booze this week or the next week after the bye, when they play Wake Forest at home, are going to be pretty unbelievable. I don't think it's going to be anything like they've seen since Taggart. I don't think the Booze were nearly this bad last year, except for maybe when they would announce DJU in the starting lineup. But it's terrible right now. I think they've probably completely lost the fan base at this point. The administration has, this coaching staff has, and they've probably lost a lot of the players, because talking to some of these players, there's a lot of guys who are ready for this experiment. I say experiment, a 6-year can't really be called an experiment. This coaching staff to be done. They are not bought in. They're losing interest, and it kind of feels similar to what happened last year with the coordinators and to Mike Norvell to some extent. But these guys this roster is made up of much more serious and committed football players, in my opinion, than last year's roster was. So to see guys like Earl Little, who is supposed to be and really has been one of the leaders on your team, you see him make that interception in the game. He's running over to the sideline with Edwin Joseph, and everybody saw what happened between Edwin Joseph and Norvell. But he and Edwin are running to the sideline, and you watch, they run, it's kind of hard to see, but they run directly past Norvell with his hands in the air to high five him. They just run past him, just completely ignore him. And it's the little things like that are adding up. That's that's Earl Little. That's one of your leaders. And so you saw the team quit, I think, in that second half of the Stanford game. Obviously, they almost were able to pull it out, but it was a different vibe of effort and buy-in than it had been in the previous 3 losses, in my opinion. And it's not going to get better.
How did FSU lose this game? Just going back to Stanford. I admit I was asleep for this one. It was a tough weekend for Miami, so I was not going to be staying up late watching college football. But you wake up in the morning, you look at the box score. I see 444 yards for FSU, 0 turnovers. Stanford 293 yards, 1 turnover. Obviously, I think I know the answer is because 13 penalties, which some of them included a delay of game before the first snap. Like, how did you lose this game?
So I was at this game, and the delay of game on the first snap was one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen. It's like the clock was counting down and they just weren't leaving the huddle. The ball was set and they had not left the sideline really with Norvell. And the clock's going. It's okay, maybe this is a Gus. He wants to have him run out there for the first play. No, they just kind of went out there. Normally it's nobody noticed that the game clock had started, the play clock had started. What are we doing? It's year 6. That is unbelievable. I don't think a high school coach would let that happen. And then it's been harped on a lot. Norvell obviously came into FSU being a big special teams guy. We're going to have a strong special teams. You had 4, maybe 5 penalties on special teams. The expected points added on just penalties in this game, the difference was 7.5 points. You lose this game by 7. you effectively lost 7.5 points due to penalties. I'd argue it was higher than that. You see Stanford doink a field goal, but FSU jumped on that play, so they get to move up closer, and they end up scoring on that drive. There were just so many stupid errors. Jumping offside on the hard count in the fourth quarter on 4th and 1. As I think that was Daniel Lyons. It was just an unbelievably undisciplined performance. I will give them one credit in discipline. They finally remembered how to tackle, which is kind of funny that in this game, they finally remembered how to tackle, and they just killed themselves with the penalties regardless. But they had 2 missed tackles in this game, and they've been plagued with tackling issues. Yeah, 4 penalties on special teams. 3 of them, I think, were in the first half. It was just and you look at the box score, FSU dominated this game on paper if you just like ignore the little penalty section, total yardage, no turnovers. They won the turnover battle by getting that pick from Earl. They really didn't let Stanford have much success on offense outside of a few busted coverages. And this isn't even with I haven't even mentioned all of the injuries that Stanford faced throughout this game. I posted a quote on one of the touchdowns. I think it was the 97-yard drive by their redshirt freshman backup quarterback to score. But they punch it in on the goal line, and right before the play, the commentator goes, backup quarterback, backup running back, backup right guard. Can they punch it in? And guess what happens? They hand it to the backup running back, and who does he run behind to punch it in? The backup right guard. It's just it cannot. You're missing like 3. They're missing like 3 guys on defense. Their team is just dropping like flies throughout this game, and somehow FSU is getting progressively worse throughout the game. It does not. I want to say it doesn't make sense looking at the box score, but if you watch this game, they were just so unprepared, so undisciplined, and a lot of them seemed like they didn't really care, to be honest.
I guess D, go ahead. You asked the next question.
No, go ahead, Pete.
I was just going to say, where does it go from here, essentially? Like, how much worse can it get? You talk about the disrespect of some of the players towards Norvell, and I understand they're committed to him through the season, right? Which you still have a lot of football to be played. Yeah. But I almost wonder if it's one of those situations where it could get even uglier. I'm talking about like guys leaving the team, guys that are considered big parts of the team, that sort of thing. Like, that's what I'm wondering. Is it that sort of toxicity level right now in Tallahassee?
Yeah, obviously we don't get to watch practices anymore, but I would imagine we're probably getting pretty close to what it looked like in practice last year, and that was a complete lack of interest in anything that the coaches were saying to most of these players. There's always some exceptions, but yeah, I think it's definitely going to get worse, and I think making this public statement of support towards Norvell, the fan base is going to turn. The fan base had already turned, but there were still some, loyal fans. I think a lot of fans were hoping FSU lost this game on Saturday for the belief that it would be the nail in the coffin for Norvell. And
yeah, Jeff
I think he did. I think
what you said earlier, it seems like Alfred inspired himself.
It's just, he's really done a great job at FSU. I think he made a slam dunk hire in basketball. I think the baseball coaching hire was good. Women's soccer has been good.
Baseball hire was great.
Yeah. And kind of ballsy, like they were coming off a winning season from the son of the winningest coach ever. And they fired him, and they make this move, and they bring in Link. And that was a really impressive move. It's really just been the contract extension up to this point that's looked bad on his resume, but this is about as bad as it gets. And I don't know. I think it's going to get so much worse.
DeSantis talking on Twitter.
I saw that. That was hilarious.
I guess DeSantis, I feel like he's like a Florida, like sports. Like he always supports all the teams, but it seems like he's more on the FSU side, I guess. He's taking shots here at the Gators for speculating they might want Nick Saban if he comes out of retirement. But anyways, yeah, I guess my thing I want to ask you about, Fink, and there was a comment here that I thought was interesting. I made the flight last year to go to Cal when the Hurricanes played, and Cal was actually better in retrospect than we thought. They had more NFL players. Mendoza looks like he might be the first pick of the draft. They had a bunch of defensive backs that got drafted high, good linebackers. So they're actually more talented maybe than they got credit for. Their tight ends who hurt Miami that day is now in Texas. But I think the flight had a big difference, made a big difference. Just watching the team, being around it, doing the flight myself, and kind of wondering how this would affect a game. You made the flight. First of all, 220 Greenwich thing. You were loving the Stanford smart Asian hotties out there. But beyond that, getting out there, making that flight, it seems like that cross-country ACC thing, and quite frankly, the cross-country Big Ten thing is real, both directions, from what I've seen. What do you think on that?
Absolutely. It's weird, man. How do you schedule your game day when you're playing on 10:30 p.m. as your body knows, Do you give the guys time to get a nap in before? Like, I don't know. Is that going to make them lose focus? It's just a weird situation to navigate. And for the most part, most coaches have never had to navigate this situation, Like, when has this ever presented itself in college sports that you're having to play at 10:30 p.m. according to your body? So I absolutely think that was a factor. I think that would explain a lot of the stupid penalties, because I'll tell you what doesn't explain them is the crowd. And I've gotten a little bit of pushback from Stanford fans. It was like a fever dream in that stadium. I don't know. It was the most bizarre thing. It was so quiet. There was one point on the first drive, I was standing in the concourse watching the end of the Kentucky game on my phone, and I tweeted, it genuinely sounded like my phone playing on full volume was louder than the crowd. And they just really did not make much of an impact. And yet you still have all these stupid delay of game, false starts, jumping off sides. I think that probably can be kind of attributed to the late game and the travel.
You say USC go to Notre Dame, and actually they played well, but losing that game ultimately, whereas doing very, very well at home. You see the trend kind of going all different directions. Of course, Penn State traveling to UCLA, which at the time was the shock of the season. Forget it now because Penn State's playing so bad and UCLA's playing better. But that was also one of those cross-country trips. So almost 1,400 on. Like and subscribe to Group Chat Sports. So again, this is Group Chat Sports. Go to our YouTube. This is college football from all angles, coaching, portal, recruits, big, small. You want to keep up with what's going on in college football and not just the stuff you see on the main page of ESPN. Check out Group Chat Sports, like and subscribe. So before we get off FSU, prediction for how this thing plays out.
Well, I guess we have to take Michael Alford's word. You just lost to Stanford, and Stanford is one of the worst Power 4 teams in the country. They have been over the last few years. And is there a worse potential loss on the schedule? Like, Wake isn't as bad as Stanford. So if you didn't, I guess maybe if James Franklin, no matter what.
There you go. I'm with you.
That's who I need. You got to stabilize the program, or else you're in danger of becoming Nebraska. So I think he probably makes it through the rest of the season. Maybe they win another one or two. I guess I haven't really thought about it, but like, you've got Clemson, you've got Florida, you've got a trap game on a Friday night it's not even a trap game anymore because NC State's better than you, but Friday night at NC State, where they always struggle. Wake, I'm forgetting one, but yeah, I just don't really know. I'm sure they'll probably get one more, but I also said that at certain points in last year's season, they'll beat North Carolina, and they could go 3-9, and that's going to be entirely on Norvell's resume. He's going to have a 2-10 and 3-9 season following a 10-3 and 13-0 season if they keep him throughout the year. And it certainly seems like they will. I don't think it's going to get better. I think it's just only going to get worse. And I think you honestly might have, I do see the transfer point, but I think you might have put yourself at risk of just things getting so much more toxic that some of these kids are like, man, I don't care who they hire. I just got to get out of here. That was such a terrible experience. Norvell being there the entire year. There was no change made, nothing to like inject juice back into the program mid-season. You see coaches get fired. That's like a motivating factor. Like UCLA, we're talking about it now. They've won 3 straight. They fire their coach and they bring in these new guys, and obviously they were there already, but they promote these new guys, and it's a new voice that you're hearing. And I just worry about some of these guys who maybe would be a little bit more encouraged if Gus or whoever, Odell Higgins, takes over midseason and can bring back some energy, and maybe they'd be more interested in returning. I wonder if the message just kind of gets lost throughout the season more than it already has, and these guys are like, get me out of Tallahassee. It's worrying for sure.
It's as a Miami person, my biggest fear for FSU would be hiring a Franklin. I think it makes the most sense. Like you said, they need to stabilize the program, kind of like Miami with Rick when they got him. Although I think Franklin has more upside because of his age and health. But man, his ability to identify players, the way he got Penn State loaded up for the draft, the way he was able to win the games he's supposed to, all things FSU really needs. Plus, because he's getting buyout money, I wonder if that could be financially arranged in a way that's more favorable to FSU. From what you're hearing from FSU people, is that a realistic thing, or is that just fan kind of talk?
I mean, honestly, I don't even think they've had any talks about who they want to hire. Like we were talking about how it seems like Florida had their sights set on Lane Kiffin far before making the move to fire Billy. I wonder if FSU's even had any conversations, because clearly they haven't had much conversations about actually making a move to fire Norvell. So I guess I really don't know if it's realistic. I hope it is. I do think probably the buyout makes it more realistic, because that has to be a priority, especially after today's move, which is probably money based to some extent. So they're gonna care about the buyout and the lack thereof in James Franklin's case.
Well, from a coach who we think is going to ultimately be fired, but is surviving, to a coach that actually was fired, and that is Billy Napier getting the can at the University of Florida. Not a surprise at all. I think the writing was on the wall to that USF loss. So maybe the timing coming off a close win, but it's a bye. You got Georgia coming up. Kind of why wait? Florida doing what FSU's not doing and getting ahead of it. I think they're in financially probably a better position than FSU is to make that kind of move. And, we're going to get into some of the recruiting impact of this move. But before we jump into this, let's just kind of pick our top candidate for this job in terms of what you think would be the best move. And I'll start with Pete, because I know you have sources at University of Florida who they told you Billy was getting fired this weekend, and you posted it on a Discord.
Yeah, I reported on Thursday that Billy was going to be out Sunday, regardless of what happened. And also part of what I had posted on that was that Lane was without a doubt their number one choice, and most likely trending towards him being the guy. Obviously, you understand that Ole Miss has had a great start to the season. They lost this weekend, but they're going to be in this mix here. And you have to ask yourself why, if you're Lane Kiffin, would I want to go to Florida, have to rebuild this thing back up? I think he probably believes that he can do that pretty quickly. If you're Lane Kiffin, who we understand is not short of any confidence, we understand that his ex-wife, who he's now back with, is the daughter of John Reeves, who was a very, played quarterback and was a very influential person there. I've heard now for a couple years that Lane was their target. And it looks like, again, I don't think they make this move without kind of having those, because we remember how it happened at Miami with Mario Cristobal. That hire was made months before Miami officially fired Manny Diaz. I think we have something very similar in play here in terms of working the back channels, and in terms of the fit. I think that I think he'll do very well there. Quite frankly, I think that he'll recruit at a high level. I mean, Ole Miss, he's had great NIL support by not only referenced by some of his classes, but the portal. He's done very strongly there. They've gone heavily into the portal, and you understand he's not going to take that leap without thinking he's going to have something even stronger in terms of resources at Florida. And I think we saw it, D, with a situation. Again, I'll use Miami. Mario Cristobal came to Miami and the resources came out of nowhere, so to speak. There was a lot of people who have believed in Mario. I think you hire Lane Kiffin, there will be even more NIL support. And I think Billy had plenty of support, but I think Lane will bring the big boosters out of Florida.
Yeah, they love Spurrier. That was their favorite coach. You hear always Spurrier nostalgia with Florida, not just the way that he won, but the way he played, the style of offense, the swagger, all the things that you see with Lane Kiffin, I think you see with Spurrier, just a persona. It's very, very similar. So I could see that being a fit, for me. And I'm not saying this will happen. If it was me picking, I think Drinkwitz at Missouri is the most logical choice, just because he's won in the SEC, which again, Lane has as well, but doesn't have any of the extra baggage. This is Florida. This is not like an Ole Miss where you can take a little bit more of a chance, right? This is a little bit higher scrutiny. The flagship, school in the state, as far as the big, it's University of Florida. So, I would argue, I'm a Canes fan, so I'm gonna say Miami is the biggest football program in the state historically. But in terms of just, it's a state school. There's a lot of kind of political stuff going on. You can't just have these certain things that may not reflect well on the university, because there's a lot of people involved watching that may not be thinking about the football program. But to me, Drinkwitz, cleanest option. Success in the SEC, knows how to use NIL, built a team up with good lines on both sides of the ball, can run the ball, can throw the ball, etc. That to me is the one that makes the most sense. But I think you're right. Kiffin will probably be the one that would be the favorite. Clay, what do you see here?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd be pretty scared if I'm the other big three schools if they get Kiffin. Obviously, Drinkwitz is a good coach. I'm gonna have to really sit down and look at him for FSU. Well, actually, I guess I'm not. Maybe I don't need to keep making additions to my hot board for FSU. Might as well wait. But Marcus Freeman is probably unattainable. I think he's fine at Notre Dame. Maybe I'd have him over Kiffin, but otherwise, I think Kiffin's basically in a tier of his own. And after Billy, who's kind of this corny, he's kind of like Mike, to be honest, just in a different font. They need a new voice and a guy who can bring energy back to that program, and nobody really does that better than Lane Kiffin. And he's going to recruit well. He recruited well at Ole Miss, which is not a historic powerhouse, and I would be pretty scared if I'm an opposing fan if Lane Kiffin is the guy, because I also think this might be a place where, does he envision himself being like settling down here? And I think every coach probably thinks that at some point in their tenure at every school. I'm sure there was a point where he thought, oh, Ole Miss might be the place I spend the rest of my career at. But is that really what's going to be the case at UF if he goes there?
I always saw Ole Miss as that bounce back big opportunity for him after FAU, right? And I think he's turned Ole Miss into man, why would I leave? But I think that's a credit to what he's done and built there. So I'm with you on that. He has to really believe if he makes the leap to Florida that he's going to have some serious backing.
I agree. Yeah, you can't go in there if you're not confident that they're gonna fully support you and give you the resources to succeed, because it's not a great situation that he's walking into. That's for sure.
Let's talk about some of the recruits that could potentially get rated here for the Florida Gators due to the coaching change. And when I look at this class, what jumps out to me, and I'll let you start, Fink, with Davian. Is it Groce?
I don't really know. I couldn't find any.
Groce. And I'll let as Pete pulls up the video here. But looking at Davian, highly ranked player, number 47 in the country, 6'1", 190. Him, and then really the whole class. I'm seeing a lot of verified measurables with these guys, a lot of high track performances, a lot of pure speed. And I think with this guy, given his basketball background and the track background and the production, very, very impressive player out of Texas.
Yeah, top 50 recruit with a 20.52 200 meter, 10.9 100 meter as a freshman. Those are awesome numbers, but he did them as a freshman. That makes them arguably elite numbers. I don't know if he's continued to run track. I think he has, but those were the most standout numbers to me. And on the basketball court, I couldn't find any numbers like statistics for him, but you'll just kind of see in the way that he plays when he goes up to get the ball, when he's running routes and just sort of creating that vertical separation. He's clearly explosive, and I think a lot of that can be attributed to the basketball background. He's a field stretcher, but I do think that there's some potential to be maybe true wide receiver one in an offense who's running a diverse route tree. They don't really ask him to do it nearly as much on film. See the block there? That's good. But they kind of just let him run past everyone. But I think he has some of the short area quicks to become more of a well-rounded guy as he continues to refine his skill set. And with guys like this, they haven't needed to be super refined in their skill set up to this point. You know, they're so fast that they can just run past everyone. And he kind of has like some longer strides, sort of Makai Danzy-esque, where it almost doesn't really look like he's moving that fast, but he's just kind of eating up turf as he gets downfield. That was some good nuance on that route there as he kind of gets in the corner's blind spot and then is able to get some extra yards after the catch. So this is a good player. He's out of Texas, so you know there's going to be some other schools coming calling, and we'll see. We'll see what happens with this one.
Yeah, I'd say as an ascendant player too. You mentioned Micah Danzy. That jumped out to me because running back / receiver, right? Track star size is pretty similar. Anytime you think about UF and some running back wide receivers, think of guys like Percy Harvin, Kadarius Toney, probably in that mold too. I think this guy to me is a receiver long-term just because of that basketball background, right? A lot of the running back / receivers are on the stiffer side, or they're just, these boxy guys who maybe they have the speed and they can catch the ball, but they're not going outside the frame necessarily. That's why they're more running backs. You get the ball to them fast. This guy, I think, can do that. And the clips we're watching now are solid. I've seen his senior stuff. It looks even better. I think there's a guy who you'll see his best as a freshman in the college football world, where he's playing one sport, he's really trained up, and then you'll see that continue to ascend, assuming that the work ethic is there. I really like this guy. I think he's properly rated as a top 50 type player. And if I'm looking at Florida's class, this is going to be right there at the top of my list. I don't know where the Texas schools are in there. I think he fits in a lot of Texas schools just because of the way those schools tend to play offense. You look at Texas A&M, what they've done with Concepcion, with Craver, he could fit in right there in that kind of style of offense. Texas always in the mix. Baylor and SMU probably lower level for a recruit of that stature, but they use guys like this all the time. Houston is playing good football. They got a quarterback coming in, a 5-star quarterback who can use some talent as well. So a lot of different ways you can see this one playing out, but or of course he can stay at Florida.
Well, I was going to say, if it's a Lane Kiffin coming in, you have to be very excited if you're a skill position player, because one thing we can say about him, we can go down his record against ranked teams. We can do all of that, but he's a heck of a coach who knows how to get the most out of what he's got. And his playmakers will put up numbers, which is a very enticing thing for guys. They want to see multiple players on an offense putting up numbers, guys getting drafted, which obviously has happened with guys who have played under Lane Kiffin. We're already hearing rumblings of the transfer stuff with them because they've got some very talented pass catchers there. But if a Lane Kiffin comes, I think a guy like Gross would be very inclined to stay aboard. Obviously, given that that the new coaching staff wants them to stay aboard. Marquez Daniel, he's another one in this Class D, a wide receiver that you and I are big fans of. 6'4", 6'5" receiver from Alabama.
Another basketball player
with long strides, track sort of speed. Miami has tried to get in there, visited Miami, but I think he's another one that things probably have been a little shaky the last month or so from what I understand. But if you get a Lane Kiffin in there, you're probably going to want to stay around if you're him.
No doubt. So just another guy that I want to talk about as you guys, and I want to hear from you as someone that caught your eye in this class. But to me, one of the commits that I have my eye on, not because of any information, I don't know where he would potentially lean. A lot of SEC schools in the mix. Florida State was in the mix at one point, Michigan. But that's Carson Baker out of Langston Hughes, powerhouse program in the Atlanta area. Running back, 6'1", 195, a total track star. Look at the numbers, 10.6, 100 meters as a running back. That's almost 200 pounds, 6'1". I mean, that is big time talent. FSU and South Carolina, two programs in flux, were heavily in the mix for this player. I saw him play a full game last year against Milton, where Luke Nichols signed with Miami, a few other guys signed with Georgia, powerhouse program, and they won that game. But Baker was absolutely outstanding, just explosive. I believe he had like a 60-something yard touchdown run. Yeah. To me, I am surprised. And we'll talk about some guys that in college level who are fast, these sprinter running backs that are having success as college freshmen. We'll get to them in a second, but I think this guy's maybe a little ranked too low. 17 on 247, 14th ranked running back on the composite. The speed, the size, he's playing against real competition. I just think you get this guy into a college system, he's going to be pretty dynamic.
Yeah, I gotta say, like as I've learned about the 247 rating system, not the composite, but the 247. So the composite has him number 172, running back 14. 247 has him not inside their top 247, so he doesn't have a national ranking. RB 17 and a 90 grade. A 90 grade is the lowest grade that you can give to a 4-star, and it's usually a guy who isn't winning with traits. That's it's a guy who you think can be a high-level contributor at the college level, but probably doesn't have the upside, but you still think he's a 4-star caliber player because he can contribute so highly at the college level. If you think it's a guy who's raw and has the traits, that's an 89. That's a high 3-star. I don't get this. I mean, not only do I think he is pretty well prepared and pretty advanced for his age as a runner, he obviously has the traits. I just think this is a bizarre ranking to me. A 90 grade that with a 10.6 100 meter at running back, that just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. And this, he ran for 8.9 yards per carry as a junior. Like,
yeah, well, translates yards on a good team.
Yeah. So that's definitely a weird one to me as well.
Yeah, so finishes junior season with 3 straight 100-plus yard performances, culminating with what I mentioned earlier, 3-touchdown effort in the state final against powerhouse Milton. 200 pounds, 6'1". I don't know if there's any off-the-field stuff. I don't want to speculate. I have not heard any. So I'm saying it more to say I have not heard anything. And I have no idea what's going on here because I think this is a guy that teams should be lining up to get. Just any team that really needs a running back. I think of, Miami Hurricanes, the team I cover, they could certainly use this kind of speed in their backfield. It's been a hot topic of conversation. Guys who could take it to the house and make your running game more dynamic. Well, when you run 10.6 and you're 200 pounds, I think you fit that profile. So very interesting. Another guy with verified measurables. One more, Clay, I want to get your thoughts on, and your thoughts, Pete, as well, on this guy, because this is somebody with a very, very, very impressive measurables out of Windermere, Florida, Orlando area that is committed to the Gators. And that is CJ Brana. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. 6'1", 166. Lengthy guy, but the track numbers are stupid. 10.33 in the 100 meters, 20.87 in the 200 meters. He was committed to Matt Rule at Nebraska. Matt Rule, a guy that we know he lives by these numbers. He is a verified measurable fiend, as is James Franklin, by the way, who we just talked about as a potential UF coach. But Matt Rule loves guys with size and speed, track speed, Under Armour camp numbers or whatever it is. When you can verify the speed, he's all over you. And I think this is a guy, I guess there's some stiffness concerns I've heard, but I don't see why a guy like this with this length and pure speed wouldn't be more sought after. And he's a top 150 player. So the guy is obviously a big recruit, but I think that he might be undersold when you consider the size and the speed.
Yeah, I think when I'm recruiting a corner, you care about the arm length, obviously, and I feel this way about offensive line as well. You want to have the best possible combination of short, long arms, because that gives you the ability to turn. You're more fluid when you're shorter, or you're just generally a more reactive athlete. And so I think about a guy that had the crazy combination of length and speed in DJ Pickett in last year's class, but he's like 6'4", 6'5". Brno is 6'1", and I've seen the number.
Brno, is that the way to say it? I screwed it up. So Brno, thank you.
No, actually, I have no clue. I have no idea.
Sounds better when you say it.
Okay.
I'm sure someone will correct us in the comments.
We'll stick with that. But I've seen the number. I think he has 34-inch arms, which that's pretty elite for an edge rusher. And he's 6'1". So I do think there are some stiffness concerns, but I think dude, you could move this guy to safety if you wanted to down the road. This is just clearly a total freak athlete. And you see he had 6 picks last year, 3 pick sixes. I would want this guy on my team. I do wonder who's going to pay up for him, or, who's going to go all out for him because he decommitted from Nebraska. Obviously, Matt Rule's got a good thing going over there, but will he be leaving? We don't know. He took another official visit to Florida State as well. I think those were the only 3 that he took. there was some belief that FSU might have a chance, but then Florida kind of moved in and was able to get the flip. So this one will be interesting to watch. Not as much like consistent interest as you would expect from a lot of SEC schools. He's got A&M offer, Tennessee offer, Oklahoma, but like LSU, but no Alabama, no Georgia, no Texas. So it's just very interesting to me. I don't know. I don't really know what the holdup is with this guy. I think, why is this not like a top 50 player at minimum? You know, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, P, what do you see when you watch these highlights and see this guy move? Now offense as well.
Yeah, I mean, I see the athlete. I mean, some people may say stiff. I would say he's twitched up, rocked up. Like sometimes these guys who are so twitchy, they look like they're moving kind of linearly. To me, you get this guy in college, you get him coached up a little bit, and he's going to be a darn good one, man. I see him being a pretty early player here for wherever he goes.
I mean, how many corners you see in college that actually play that are 6'1" and run 4.3, which this guy at least is going to run, if not 4.2. I mean, 10.3, we're getting down there. How many guys that had that profile like don't get drafted? I mean, even if they play bad, right? I mean, it's like this guy's good enough to at least play with his measurables. He's going to get a shot at the NFL. So what's an NFL corner worth? You know, so I think truthfully, a lot of these guys that are dealing with these coaching changes, I would not flip fast, because you're going to see new coaches trying to hit the ground running, whether it's a James Franklin, wherever he lands, whoever is at Florida, whoever at Florida State, whoever's at, say, Penn State, whoever's at potentially LSU, Auburn. Like, these are programs with money, and who knows how it's all going to land. Wisconsin even might be trying to make a splash. So if I'm a guy like this, I say, all right, I'm a free agent, and then wait till the very end of the buzzer where all those teams are really scrambling to get players like this and don't have a ton of commitments on their board. They have boosters that just paid, the new coach a lot of money. They'll probably help him out. And then these guys could probably cash in pretty heavy towards the end of the process by just waiting it out. So that's what I would do if I'm a guy like this.
Yeah, I mean, if they hire Franklin and I'm a defender, I want to play for James Franklin. If they hire Lane and I'm an offensive player, especially skill player, quarterback, I want to play for Lane. So, and obviously these guys could decommit and explore their options and then revisit Florida. But I also agree. I think I wouldn't be too quick to jump the gun if I'm some of these recruits, especially some of these kids. I know it feels crazy in this day and age. They just like the school, like some of these kids might just like Florida. And I'm not saying that's the case maybe for the guys we talked about at the top of their recruiting board, but if they make a good enough hire, some of these guys are just going to, sticking with my commitment. So we will see some decommitments. That's the way of the game. But I think it's probably a good idea for some of these guys to stay put, wait it out, and see what the decision is.
Before I guess it all comes. Go ahead, Pete. I was just going to say it all comes down to who is their guy, right? Because they may be at another school and maybe have another guy committed at the same position who's like the same sort of player, and they may just bring them over with them, and that's just what happens sometimes. So sometimes, a lot of times, the decommitments and these coaching staff changes are a mutual decision.
Yeah. So before we get off this class, anybody, either Clay or Pete, you want to jump on? We got some guys, KJ Ford, very productive defensive lineman out of Duncanville, Texas, same school as DeCorian Moore and Keelan Russell, high-profile football, obviously. Kendall Gorville from Fort Myers, big athletic guy, had some national interest. And anyone else you guys want to jump on here in this class before we move on?
I do like two of their offensive linemen lower in their class. Janivre Carr, I don't know, out of IMG. Yep, he's kind of been in the spotlight for a few years now just because he came into high school with a massive frame. He's listed at 6'4", 336 right now. That's just like a phone booth guard. You're not going to get around him. You're not going to get through his chest. He's going to be solid in pass pro, able to get some push in the offensive line or on the run game. So I really like him. And then Chancellor Campbell out of Lakewood is a high 3-star in the composite as well. He's 6'8", 295 at offensive tackle, so a real offensive tackle body type. And he's an athlete, man. Like he has all of the upside. He also plays basketball. I think basketball maybe was his first sport, which is always encouraging. But if he can continue to add weight and continue to add power, the first round tools are there, and obviously that's a swing you just have to take with offensive line, and you never know how the development will go, but that's a very high upside player. And then Hezi Kent is interesting at tight end, 6'6", 300, but who knows what will happen with him. And Jarraylen McCoy out of Tupelo, Mississippi. You get some of those Mississippi kids, their highlights are always just completely dominant, and 6'6", 245. He still needs to add some weight. He's probably going to play on the interior, but he's kind of a game wrecker right now in high school. He's got some fun tape.
Yeah,
Hezi Kent, D, you and I are fans of his. We talked about him on CanesInSight a lot. People are slotting him to play offensive tackle, but you see some of his movement ability. He could be a very, very interesting piece. Hey, we talked about it with Lane Kiffin before. Remember JJ Peggs? I actually have used that comparison. And that's who Lane Kiffin, gave him the ball. He scored about seven touchdowns in his career, maybe more than that.
100 career rushing yards at 330 pounds, 7 touchdowns. He's my favorite interview I've ever had. I got to talk to him at the Shrine Bowl. That guy's hilarious.
Yeah, so I think that could be a potential comparison there.
Definitely
for him. So he's an interesting talent. I have a feeling that if it's Lane, then he'd figure out a way to get him the ball and get him involved.
Yeah. So let's move on. I also love Hezi Kent. Let's move on here to a couple players before we get out of here. There's a lot of SEC games to cover. I wanted to really zero in on just some players that I think tell a larger story about the teams that they're on and the directions they're going. LSU, a team with a lot of negativity around them right now. They spent big in the portal, huge in the portal, hoping to compete for a championship. Now they got a very, very tough road if they're going to get to the playoffs. I would say the odds of them making the playoffs right now are unlikely based on the way they're playing, the way their schedule lines up after a huge loss to Vanderbilt. And a player I want to get to is Harold Perkins and Clay. This a lot of different ways to look at this. You look at his career, 31 games, 27 half tackles for loss, 13 sacks, 7 forced fumbles. Clearly made an impact statistically in those 31 games. Seen this year, had moments against UF and Clemson coming from different angles, really impacting that game with his speed and quickness. But then you watch the Vanderbilt game. Beat up in the run game, bad angles on blitzes, Pavia running wild, breaking contain. I saw a clip that Cole Kubalik posted of him getting blocked 15 yards downfield. Not what you want to see with Whit Weeks out with an ankle injury. What are you seeing with Harold Perkins?
I'm seeing a player that kind of caught the SEC by storm as a freshman. He racked up 41 pressures, 90.9 pass rush grade as a freshman. And I think after that, they sort of started to move around his positioning in year 2. They started to give him more reps as the slot, or they call him the star in their defense. But and they really decreased the defensive line snaps. They still gave him some in year 2. He racked up 24 pressures, playing 500 plus combined snaps over those years on the defensive line. He's played around 90 snaps on the defensive line in the 2 years since. And I get that they're probably trying to prepare him for that move at the next level, but he can't play at linebacker right now because his instincts are terrible. Some of the worst I've seen. His feel in coverage, he has the tools in coverage. There are some moments. I remember last year when they really moved him, and he dealt with injuries last year, but they moved him to star, and I think it was the Missouri game. He had a couple of really impressive drops in coverage where he felt out space behind him. But, man, he is lost out there more often than not, and they haven't been putting him in the position to do the thing that he does best, which is pass rush, whether it's off the edge or really he's kind of struggled as a blitzer as well when he's off the ball at linebacker. So I think this team is just really struggling to figure out how do we use this guy who was supposed to be the star of our defense for the next few years. And now he didn't even declare after his first 3 years, which I don't think a lot of people would have expected after year 1. What do you do with a 6'1", 215, 220 pound linebacker whose best trait is rushing off the edge?
Yeah, and you think he has more in his body as far as the versatility, but then you wonder about the instincts. And yeah, you have LSU fans very, very concerned here. I'm pulling up a tweet now as we see a tweet defending Perkins, but the reason they're defending him is because a lot of Louisiana State fans are making posts like this. What happened to this guy? The play that really upset a lot of LSU fans was that 4th down TD run where Alexander just kind of pushed the pile in there, and Perkins was standing around watching it like the rest of us. I know that got a lot of people upset. Obviously, with weeks out, you want that effort to be stronger and setting that kind of tone. Different kind of game, different size. But I wonder just the path of his career. Again, these are different players. They're 20 pounds different positions. But I think about Arden Key, right, who was a first projected top 5 pick, had some injuries, had some ineffectiveness, ultimately dropped to the 3rd round based really just on tools. I think that was picked higher than maybe people expected just because of his tools. Now he's played on 4 teams in the NFL, but he still played 109 games, 28 sacks. So I think he's been pretty productive given where he was picked. I don't know if that's the path for a Harold Perkins. Different players, I get it, but just, I don't know. Someone's going to take a chance on the talent, but it's not really helping LSU right now.
I think that would be the path, and that's what it has to look like. But ultimately, the thing that gives me pause is, he really doesn't have a true position, is the lack of arm length in his case. Arden Key was light for a defensive end, but he's 6'5", but he had average 50th percentile arm length for a defensive end. So if you had him at linebacker, it's even higher. I don't know if I've seen a number for Harold Perkins, but I'd imagine it's in like the 31-inch range, which is really bad for both linebacker and defensive end. So I question that. And
I've got a bit of a comparison here, and I was just looking at the weight. He's a bit of he's and this is going to be off the wall for some people, but James Houston. James Houston's a guy who was at the University of Florida, started his career there, kid from American heritage, came in as
injury, I think, at one point.
Had an off-ball. It was an off-ball linebacker. It was really like an interior, inside linebacker, I should say, for Florida. Ends up going to Jackson State, and he's about 6'6'1". Not as explosive as Perkins, maybe a little bit heavier than Perkins.
Yeah,
but does not have the skill set really to be a guy in coverage. But man, let me tell you, you can get after the quarterback. Has had an interesting career here as a rookie with the Lions. Had like 8 sacks or something like that in like half the season as an undrafted free agent, and has now made a nice career himself with the Cowboys and playing a lot now with the Cowboys. And I think Perkins probably has more upside athletically than this player, but I think that, Arden Key probably a little bit taller than him. No,
just to be clear, but I think your comparison is a great one, Pete. I'm not comparing the player as far as Arden Key's a real defensive end. Perkins is a linebacker. I just meant in terms of you see him at top 5 as a young player, like, hey, this guy's going to be the next guy, and then injuries, whatever, ineffectiveness, and he drops. But then just because of his pure tools, he's able to at least do something in the NFL. But comparison-wise, I'll kick it back to you. So I want to clarify that before people say, oh, Arden Key's 20 pounds bigger. He's a real defensive end. I was just comparing kind of the path. Your comp, James Houston, 3.5 sacks this year already. That to me makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, and I think he's not going to be the biggest looking guy, but you can use him effectively as a pass rusher, and just know that's what he is. And yes, it's a gadget type of player, and that might just be what he is at the next level. But I think you're still going to have a ton of interest because of that skill set.
This just came to mind. If you went kind of the other direction and made him like a gadget linebacker, Ivan Pace, he was more of a well-rounded guy at Cincinnati, but they really just use him as a design blitzer on the Vikings.
For sure. And he's bigger than that too. He's bigger than Pace.
Yeah, for sure.
I think he'll be all right. I think the sack numbers are also very deceiving in how fans look at a guy right off the bat. So sometimes the freshman year it can get back to haunt you a little bit there in terms of what the fans perceive you as. And there's going to be he's been thrown more stuff in terms of the attention that opposing offenses are keeping on him because they know he is a potential game plan wrecker. But I think he will be fine. It's going to be determined by the role he's used in moving forward.
Yeah, and he's missed some sacks too. I mean, there's some sacks he should have had. They just didn't have the strength to finish or whatever it was. But yeah, those numbers could be higher, and that's on him. So really interesting player. And I think all the way through the draft, he's not going to be talked about like a top 15 pick like we thought coming out. But I think he's still going to be a player that teams talk a lot about because at his best, he can impact the quarterback while also theoretically providing versatility and ability to be creative. So he's going to be talked about until he's picked and thereafter as one of those guys, even though he won't be that top 15, top 10 pick that maybe we thought when he was a freshman. By the way, over 1,500 on live. Remember to like and subscribe to Group Chat Sports as we get into recruiting, portal, current players, coaching changes, coordinator changes, anything under the sun. We're talking here on Group Chat Sports. Remember to like and subscribe. Over 1,500 on right now as we end it on a positive note, because Oklahoma is a team that going into the season, I thought was going to run the ball pretty well. I know they had running back issues, but I just thought adding Mateer and the fact that he was a true dual threat quarterback was going to open up their running game. Washington State did a good job running the football, and not just the scrambling, but the running 4 yards, right? Because he's a strong, sturdy guy. The scrambling and making plays is there in the passing game, but what I'm surprised by is the running big games and effectiveness. 101st in yards per carry, 84th in rushing yards per game. Jaden Nye hasn't worked out, but we may have found something at Oklahoma in the running game with their big win over USC, South Carolina. And that's Torrey Blaylock, 5'11", 203-pound true freshman out of Atascocita. Let me just pronounce it right. Atascocita High School in Humble, Texas, right? Pete, it's Humble, not Humble, right? Humble?
Yes, I believe that.
Humble, Texas. We've been corrected on that in the past. We were talking about Carson Baker a little earlier, the commit to Florida and just the verified speed. Torrey Blaylock's a guy, 203 pounds, verified 10.6, 200 meters in high school. So you get in that 4.4, 4.3 territory with that kind of time. Opening drive, 2nd and 20, has a big run to get them close to the 3rd down. Then ultimately at the end of the drive, 18-yard score, outrunning guys on the sideline. Ben Arbuckle, Oklahoma's offensive coordinator, said that this set the tone for how he wanted to be the entire day. As we look at some of the recruiting stuff for Blaylock, he was a 4-star player, number 17 running back on both 247 and the composite. Honestly, in many ways, similar to Carson Baker, who again we just talked about. This is, I'm saying the comp, but just a similar path
profile, and
like in terms of the ranking, and I think their listed size is almost identical, but he's really a fast player. He can break some tackles. You looked at what they did in the portal, getting Jaden Ott. He has some experienced backs, Javante Barnes, Xavier Robinson, who Robinson also is running well, 11 carries, 58 yards in this game and a touchdown. But ultimately, Blaylock, who NFL bloodlines, his dad played in the NFL, got brothers who played college, younger brothers, a 27 cornerback, 97 carries on the year, 391 yards, 4.5 yards per carry, 4 touchdowns. I think you're going to see that yards per carry go up. I think you're going to see more big plays. And I just think you're going to see potentially a star in Torrey Blaylock, given just how important he is to a playoff contender as a true freshman.
Yeah, I think it's pretty impressive the amount of production that he's been able to amass so far, despite not really playing how you would expect coming in with the 10.6 100 meter. So he's only broken 6 missed tackles this year. His long run on the year is 25 yards with a 10.6 100 meter. Only 25% of his yards have come on 15-plus yard runs. So this has not been like an overwhelmingly home run explosive back, and he's still producing. So I think once, whether it's the offensive line isn't, giving him the wide open lanes to break a long one, or maybe he's just still kind of working out some of the vision and stuff. Once he takes that next step and really is able to unlock that speed, I think there's another level that he can reach.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was the surprise to me when I saw the yards per carry on the season at 4.6 or whatever it was. I thought it'd be higher given how good he looked when we watched him this past week and just the pure speed numbers. I think that'll even out over time because, as you know, with these guys that can take it to the house, you got 180-yard touchdown, and that picture changes pretty quick statistically. But you see, the track speed translates when you watch him play here in high school. He had that 18-yard run, which is really just outrunning guys. I think he's done a nice job with his lateral quickness. I like how he was moving around. He's not a stiff player. And when you have a quarterback like Mateer, I like this kind of running back because Mateer can run short yardage. He's got big legs. I know he's hurt now, and maybe you're try to take it a little easier on him, but he has those big, strong legs. He is a power runner. I think back to Tim Tebow when he was at Florida, just another big-legged running back. I'm not saying them a tier's Tebow, but similar kind of build and approach. When Tebow's running backs were never big, they were always either, a Percy Harvin or a Chris Rainey or a Jeff Demp, someone with a lot of speed who could take it to the house. So if you're watching Tebow and his power threat and his ability to get 3 yards when you need it, you take your eyes off a guy like this, and then boom, they're going to the house. So we'll see which direction Oklahoma's running game goes. Obviously, good start this past weekend, but this is going to be a bubble playoff team, and they have some very, very difficult games coming up. And they need, and as a true freshman, a lot to ask, but they need this guy to be a dude and to continue to build on that momentum.
It's crazy how quickly things change now in college football, D, because we're talking about them as a bubble playoff team, which I agree. But we were hearing last week, there were reports of Venables being on the hot seat. And it really could be the case if they dropped, a couple of these next games. But that is just how explosive this stuff is now with the money involved and the NIL. And there you go. You got the Cam Ward celebration there, or I'll call it really the Dawood Davis from Western Kentucky celebration, as history has shown. But
client.
Yeah.
You see some physicality here blocking. I mean, his frame's not bad. I think he's going to be a pretty decent sized back. I would just really do wonder the upside, because if he can be productive as a true freshman, continue to get stronger, there you see him catching the ball, and then this pull away speed. I mean, this guy could be a guy.
I wonder if there's something we can take away from Mekhi Hughes at Oregon and Jaden Ott at Oklahoma. I don't know, maybe not, but like both of these guys come in. Mekhi Hughes is making $700,000. I think actually that's how much Jaden Ott is making as well, and they're expected to be kind of the workhorse backs in their offense. And now Mekhi Hughes is redshirting. Jaden Ott, I'm kind of surprised is not redshirting, but I've heard from some people closer to Oklahoma that the staff just really did not trust him whatsoever throughout this summer. So I just wonder, like, is there a lesson that can be learned here? I don't really know.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think too, when you think about Oregon, I think of De'Aaron Hill, who is not as accomplished on the track as Blaylock, but in terms of football speed, I think pretty similar. 5'11", 205, averaging 9.7 yards per carry, long as 66. So he's someone that I think really cut into Hughes' minutes, right? That was not something they expected him to have such a big role, but there's only so many snaps to go around, and I think De'Aaron Hill clearly has earned that. So yeah, I mean, that's one thing that jumps out to me is just the speed backs making an impact here. And this is one of them with Blaylock, but also even Bo Jackson. I think Bo Jackson's got some speed for a bigger guy. Yeah, I don't know what his times are, but I'm pretty sure he's got some nice.
He shot out of a cannon. Yeah.
This is a pretty complete back here, Blaylock. I got to say, I'm impressed with some of the change of direction and lateral agility, even some of the tackle breaking. Obviously, he had a few nice catches. So I think this guy is just going to only keep getting better.
Yeah, no, and the confidence of having a game like this. Now, Oklahoma's schedule is an absolute bear. I mean, just pulling up here right now. Oklahoma, look, you'd sign up for where Oklahoma is right now, certainly. They're number 13 in the country. I think any Oklahoma fan watching that offense last year would sign up for 6-1, number 13 in the country. But here we go. I mean, it's almost unbelievable when you look at it. So let me pull up Oklahoma's schedule. You want to guess how many ranked teams they play for the rest of the year?
It's like 5, right? 5 more?
4 more? All of them. So Ole Miss number 8, 17 Tennessee, at Alabama, then home against Missouri, and then home against LSU. So it is you thought Texas was going to be a tough game, which they lost anyways, but that was not, Texas ended up not being as good as we thought. This right here, and we've talked about jobs coming open, right? So this could be a job that is rock solid if they get through this, and then Venables is the guy and you're throwing parades, but it could also go sideways. Let's say you lose, 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
And now you're talking about 5 possibility a year. That could easily happen, especially with Mateer not 100%. So they got to run the ball. They have to. It's not just Blaylock's a nice thing for them. They need Blaylock to be that guy. Similar to how Bo Jackson is for Ohio State. Similar to how Hill is for Oregon. They need him to be that guy, because if he's not, and they can't run the ball, and they put it all on Mateer, who's banged up, that one could get ugly.
Yeah, that would. I mean, if they lose all 5 of those, that would be their 3rd straight 6-6, or 3 out of 4 years under Venables. They would have gone 6-6 in the regular season, and then they obviously had the 10-3 season in 2023. But yeah, I think the time would probably have come if they lose 4 or maybe even 3 of those 5.
Crazy.
Yeah.
All right, fellas, almost 1,600 on. Please support us at Group Chat Sports. Like and subscribe to that channel. If you're a Canes Insight viewer, watch this on that stream. Check us out on Group Chat Sports as we get this thing rolling here with all coverage of all the country, not just portal, not just coaching changes, not just high school recruiting, not just standout players, young players that are emerging, all of the above at Group Chat Sports. Again, for Pete, for Clay, appreciate you all. See you tomorrow.
Hit that like and subscribe.